we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight, the final Monday night before the Christmas break. My name is Dave Scott. So glad to have you with us, and thank you for tuning us on in. Jeff Belanger is going to be there talking about Christmas horror stories. He's got a brand new book out called The Fright Before Christmas. We're going to get into that with Jeff here momentarily. But first, Dirty Filth is here as well. But first, we got to say hello to each and every one of you. We got Laura Lobbs in the gold medal position, Race Fan in the silver. Taking home a bronze medal tonight is Ann B. Good to have you all. The attorney at large, Michael Morris, Chris 716, Robert Lamoth, and Forrest Louie. How y'all doing? Jimmy Gonzalez, Flat Six, Road Flare, Vash the Impaler. Good to have you here. Doubleday Clemens is here. Doubleday will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Here we go with roll call. D. Cohen, nice to see you here. And Tim Mothman and your goatee, nice to have you back. Continuing on with roll call here. Let us say hello to Luscious Jules, who makes her friendly return. And who else is joining us here? Paramarv, thanks for coming on in. And who else? Forrest Louie, thank you for kicking off the Super Chats tonight with a doubleheader right off the bat. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you times two, Louie. Very much appreciate you, my man. And let's continue on with the roll call here as we have up next. Well, where are you? Must have been a good conversation. T-Bone, Lars Jansson wearing Peter Forsberg's old number 21 from Stockholm, Sweden. There's Lars. Okay, continuing. Here we go. Just another guy named Harry. Nice to see you. Guy Calgary and the lovely and talented Kira. Nice to have you back. Purple-haired pixie Lara, thank you for coming on in. Millennium, my man, good to have you here. And we continue on with our roll call with Lee the Bee. Good morning to you, as well as Matthew Goodka. Abbott Hoffman, welcome to SOR Chat. Let's continue on. Jessica Davenport, how are you? Thank you for coming on in. Aaron Bacca, good to see you. And there's Louie's second super chat. Thank you, Louie. Very much appreciate it. Corey Cole has returned. Corey will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Let's move it forward. Kathy Evans, Michael Fontaine, good to have you with us as we continue on with our roll call. There's Boss Monster. Little Cam over on Twitch, good to see you, my man. And Joe Jenkins, welcome to SOR Chat. Chef Chris, JBD, Body Tech, good morning to you. Steve Romo, welcome to SOR Chat. And who else do we have here? Puck Elf, welcome to SOR Chat. Simon the Likeable, nice to see you. High Desert Rat. And continuing on here, we have Eli McGinnis. Crystal J, thank you for coming on in. Hello there, Dragonfly. And who else is here? We're caught up so far. Let's see who's over on our Facebook side so far. Sparkles, how are you? Let's get the radio side started. Hello and welcome to SOR Chat and the big show tonight to kick off the final week before Christmas. Jeff Belanger is here, and we're going to be talking about Christmas horror stories. Why? Because we can. That's the way we do it. The Fright Before Christmas coming up here momentarily Studios. We should be ready to welcome in Bill WD-40 to lube us up for tonight's show. Hi, Digger Dog and Welsh Hammer. Good to see you. Gravity Amplifiers. Welcome to SOR Chat. And who else has shown up here? We are caught up so far. All right, I want to remind you the Super Chat is open. As well, you can do some shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store on our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. We actually have swag that you're going to want to wear out. Not just to mow the lawn or go to a garage sale or do laundry and Sunday chores. No, clothes that you actually want to wear out every now and again. Paisley Parker, nice to see you. And we're almost ready to go here. Thank you very much for tuning us in. Hi, JSCO. Here we go. Richard Elmore. Bill WD-40, currently lubing up in Spreaker. Nice to see you. Dragonfly, thank you for the super chat. Very much appreciate the love. Do me a favor, everybody. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show of entertainment for you tonight. Author, researcher, paranormal enthusiast Jeff Belanger is here to talk Christmas horror stories with his new book. Then in hour number 3, Among the Missing with Steve Stockton. Following that, going a little retro tonight. Little Timmy Senor filling in for Courtney Marcassani on the UFO Report. Jeff Belanger is one of the most visible and prolific researchers of folklore and legends today. A natural storyteller, he's the award-winning Emmy-nominated host, writer, and producer of the New England Legends series on PBS and Amazon Prime. He is also the author of over a dozen books. He also hosts the award-winning New England Legends weekly podcast, which has garnered over 4.5 million downloads since its launch. His new book that he has out right now that everybody could get, it was launched on September 4th, but it is just a beauty. You know, because we never hear stories about hauntings around Christmas and ghostly encounters and all this stuff. Well, Jeff has dug it up. The Fright Before Christmas can be found on his website, jeffbelanger.com. So, Jeff, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio. And you know what? I believe it's been about seven and a half years since you were last on this show. I promise our audience it won't be 7.5 years. We won't break any mirrors in between, but thank you for coming back on the show again. It's been a long time.
Yeah, good to be with you, Dave. Thanks for having me back.
You are so popular when it comes to the way you write, the way you are, dig into these stories. You got to have a lot of fun doing what you do, man, in creating these paranormal adventures.
Yeah, I for sure. I have a dream job, there's no question, but it is my job. I've been doing this full time for almost 20 years now. And when something is your job, when you literally have to depend on it to pay your bills, it's funny how your back can get up against the wall just like any other job. But that being said, I'd rather do this than anything else. So thank you.
You and I have something in common. We're both journalists by trade. And, did you ever think when you went into journalism school that the paranormal and supernatural and all the weird stuff would really take over your life? I tell you, when I was in radio, the only thing I was concentrating on is getting a sports job to get my press passes. That's all I wanted. But here I am, 20 some years later, talking about the woo of all things.
Yeah, so I didn't go to journalism school. I went to school to be a writer, though. I was an English major and started writing for anybody that would let me, and that included newspapers and magazines. And I was always a features guy, and I got hooked around October looking for the haunted places. And I love history. I love talking to people, and sometimes you found that the history could back up some of these strange stories that people were talking about. And then it was not a career I planned, like you. I was just, happy to have a voice somewhere. And then I started a website in 1999. Then I started writing books, started working for Ghost Adventures in 2008. And one day I woke up and I just said, my God, this is my full-time job. And I can't imagine, not only can I not imagine doing anything else at this point, Dave, I don't think I'm qualified to do anything else, which I think scares me the most.
I know the feeling on that one, my friend. I totally know that. But you
Yeah.
know what? I mean, very few people have been able to carve out a niche and create a job in the paranormal, supernatural. Now, we're not all getting rich on this,
No.
but the fact that we are able to tell the stories and to be able to tell people, some of these weird, strange happenings, maybe even in their own areas. I mean, to me, that's the thrill, is how we can affect people with our words and what we discover.
Well, so not only that, I think people are looking for an outlet to share their experiences. And the more shows like yours, and books and websites and all this other stuff, the internet has really given a voice to everything, which is great and horrible, of course. But at the same time, people are now able to share and learn that what they're going through is not that weird. Whether you've seen a ghost or a UFO or some sort of cryptid or something else, someone else out there has seen something just like what you've seen. And when we share those stories, we start to create a community and realize, like, hey, it's okay to talk about it. In fact, I think talking about it is the most important thing. I don't have the answers, but I do think the discussion not just helps us normalize this stuff, but also helps us understand ourselves, because these experiences are happening. These legends exist, and go back a long, long time for some reason that we may not have fully figured out yet. But the fact that they don't go away means that we are collectively still sort of reckoning with it.
You know what? I love what you said there because, we deal a lot in the UFO side of things here on Spaced Out, obviously, and, trying to keep people up to date with what's going on in the UFO world and that big story. And it's just amazing how ugly that has gotten because the human stories of those anecdotal stories of experiences have been raked across the coals where people don't even want to buy them, that everybody who has this encounter is faking, lying, or anything. But when it comes to like the paranormal or even a lot of the cryptid stuff, we tend to be a lot more believing in the person's firsthand account on that. I don't know if you've noticed that as well, but it's something that I've really noticed.
Yeah, so I think the firsthand account is probably some of the most important data points that we have. And I know it's not scientific. I know people can be mistaken, and I know stories change over time. I understand all of that, but I also feel like there's this ring of truth that happens when someone shares something profound, whether it was falling in love, the birth of a child, witnessing an accident, or witnessing something paranormal, whether a ghost or some other element that you just don't fully understand. But the fact that you put a label on it, and it's your label, right? As you know, is because you've heard all the various accounts from different kinds of encounters. When the witness decides to call it alien or demonic or ghostly, you know, that's their words, that's their experience. And it's so easy for us to want to put everything in a box when the reality is anything in the human experience doesn't fit neatly in a box. Paranormal, even less so. But that doesn't mean it's not worth talking about because, like I said, I think somewhere in the fringe, we find some real truth about, this basic part of the human experience.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter whether it's UFOs or ghosts or aliens or cryptids, the one thing that everybody wants to know when they have that experience is, why me? Why am I going through this? Why is this something happening to me and not my friend or my worst enemy or something along those lines? It is a very personal and projectioning, or pardon me, that's the wrong word. It's a very personal and emotional response that a lot of people have. And if it wasn't for writers like you or researchers like our good friend Dave Schrader, and others like that, how much further behind would we be right now? Honestly, I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
have to tell it.
No, I get that, but I also think too that we're living in an interesting time where people are so overloaded with information that we're trying to latch on to something that we can just hold as true. And again, I think these encounters are human experiences. You will never be able to, not necessarily, very difficult to recreate them. But I also think that they are sort of natural. And the analogy I've used, especially with like ghost sightings, is a lightning strike. We know lightning strikes the earth thousands of times a day, all over the planet, but not usually right next to where we're standing. If it does strike right next to where we're standing, you will never forget it, I assure you. So when I've had ghost encounters, and I've only had a few in 20 plus years of doing this, I feel like that's what was happening. I was in a place, there was a storm, lightning struck, and I actually saw it. And I've never forgotten those experiences. And I still want to know what they mean. Why did it happen to me? I don't know. Maybe I was just in the right place at the right time. Or maybe there's some meaning that I still have yet to glean, but they all have some sort of meaning.
They truly do. Why do you believe in ghosts? You're not really an experiencer until you really got into this field, started researching it. Why do you believe that this is going on?
Okay, I have an answer for this that's really more philosophical, and it's so simple. And I'm going to say it, and I just want it to sink in for a second. I believe in ghosts because there's a word for it. Let that sink in for a second. There is a word for it in every language. There's a word for it that goes back in religious texts, history books, folklore, oral traditions, every which way you can name it. If it wasn't real, why would it need a word?
True.
So, on the most base level, we needed a word for this thing. On the next level, I believe in ghosts because I've had experiences I can't understand, and I don't have another word to slap on it other than ghost. So there's that. And then there's also, I was actually having a conversation tonight about someone who said, "Look, I don't even know if I believe in spirits or any of that stuff." And I said, "Okay, well, stay with me for a minute." And he was an older gentleman. I said, "Think of a memory of like a grandparent, a favorite grandparent, some sweet, warm memory you have of that person." And he's like, "Okay, got it." I said, "You literally just called that person from the past to the present to where you are right now. I can't see it. I can't experience it. I never knew your grandparents. I have no idea what you're even thinking about. But right now, in my presence, you just called that person up." And I think sometimes it's that simple. It's a connection to the past because all of us are a product of not just, who raised us, but where we lived and every person that's been there before us. There's a natural connection from one person to another. It makes sense that we would need to sort of hear these and experience these echoes from the past because that's who we were and it's defining who we are.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And I mean, these are legends that have been going on for centuries, even millennia, people talking about ghosts and spirits and things flying in the sky, whether it's the Bible, which in my opinion is one of the most paranormal books ever written,
Of course.
or or whether it's what you do or what you're studying upon. I mean, these stories have been going on for a long time, and you know we all there's very few things that every person on this planet has in common. Most of us pay taxes, not all, okay, but the one thing we all do have in common is we're going to die,
That's
and
true.
and the thought of dying sucks. So, I mean, the whole idea is we're all sitting here hoping, even if we're atheists, we're sitting here hoping, damn, I hope there is something out there afterwards, man. Because if there isn't, this is going to really, give me a headache or something along those lines.
So there's an old Mexican proverb about how we all die three deaths. And I think this gets to the heart of it too, right? So the first death is when your body expires, pretty straightforward. Second death is when your corpse is laid in the ground. But the third and final death comes somewhere down the line, and that happens when your name is uttered for the last time. So if you think about that, as long as your family remembers you, your loved ones remember you, and then even bigger, think of the giants, right? Shakespeare, Bach, Beethoven, Jimi Hendrix, right? We're still saying their names many years after their death, in some case centuries after their deaths. They are still with us. They're still with us in a very tangible way. And I think we all have some sort of drive for immortality to some degree, right? We want to survive our own death, and most of us will. Uh, but how big and how far? I mean, that's still to be determined. But I think it's all interconnected. All of it is interconnected because it is the big question, right? What happens after we die? Do we continue in some way? Does our consciousness live on, or do we just live on in others? I'm not sure, but I think it's worth a study.
Fluff question of the night.
Sure.
How much do you love doing what you do? Chasing down these stories, these legends, going through history books and maybe town scribes and all this kind of information, just to dig up a story and a legend of, some ghost or spirit or building.
It's weird. Over time, I've embraced more of my role as the storyteller, but also loving when you find those nuggets, when you find those hidden treasures that haven't seen the light of day in quite a long time, but they're still sort of floating out there somewhere. That to me still gives me such a charge. I think of it almost in a religious way, like I'm kind of like a minister, and these are just sermons from the past. I didn't write the sermons. I'm just sort of telling them and seeing where they land, and they seem to resonate with enough people that I stay employed and get to work another day. So to me, that's plain and simple what it is. It's that something from the past. And I use the word legend quite a bit, and I don't want people to get confused and think legend means fiction. There's the legend of Roswell. That doesn't mean Roswell's made up. It means there is a story that has evolved off of Roswell that got bigger than the actual thing. There are living people, who are legends, sports legends, entertainment legends, where the story of the person is bigger than the person could ever be. And that's the thing that makes our radar once we hear the legend. But then if you trace it backwards, you can often find the roots.
Yeah, and like I live in a small town
Mhm.
with only, my area is maybe 1,500 people, and we have legends around here of a murderer along the Gold Rush Trail named Agnes McVie, where there's two legends about her. Number one, that she came from Scotland and she ran away because she was going to be charged with murder there, and then hopped on a boat over to Canada to the west coast and opened up what we called a oh goodness, what did we call them? Like a hostel.
Mhm.
Okay. And when the men were coming back down from the gold rush, she would murder them for their money and the gold that they found. Apparently, she killed 62 people. Then you have the people who've lived here a while who sit here and say, yeah, that legend was created by the real estate company that developed the area in the 70s because they figured it would bring people up from Vancouver to get them to spend their money if we threw in a ghost story. So, I mean, it really depends on how you look at things and how deep you could go with the investigation. I mean, I just love history. And the one thing that I love about being in a small town is every town has a story. It doesn't matter whether it's a haunted bar or the lady in white who happens to show up on a certain date on a certain corner. I mean, these stories, if it wasn't for people like you, would be lost. And we're going to lose a lot of history over the next 100 years if we're not telling those legends.
Well, there's also something else that happens, right? So a lot of all these stories were born of oral traditions, right? We're back in the time where one person passed the story to another person, and that person would retell it, and they'd add a little bit of themselves into it, and that's a natural process, right? It's the telephone game. We played it in, preschool. So that oral tradition thing, there's something profound that happens when a person shares their story with another person. It happens in on a one-on-one on the street. It happens over radios and live streams. It happens in all kinds of ways. But there is this sort of like energy transfer that happens. But telling the story is so important. And we live in a time now where we're texting and we're putting up tweets or X or whatever you call it now, right? So we're putting up shorter and shorter bits of information. But it's still like the story, transfer is still an important part of the human experience.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the things we're sort of longing for. That's the connection that we so desperately need. You can't always get it in a text message or a tweet or what have you. Sometimes it's got to be the actual story, because when you can look at someone and read their body language when they're sharing something profound that they went through, you connect with them and you're like, wow, that's a real human being. We're not just talking about, surface level weather or sports or whatever. We're talking about something big. And that really connects us.
It really does. With 3 minutes to go, what's one of those small town legends in your area? One that really sticks with you?
So there's a story. It's kind of silly. It's the redheaded hitchhiker of Route 44 in Rehoboth, Massachusetts, about 40 minutes from where I live. For almost 50, maybe 60 years now, people have reported pulling up on this road, and it's a pretty good stretch of road. I mean, the speed limit's 50 miles an hour. And this redheaded, disheveled man will step out onto the street, thumbing a ride, and then disappear. In other versions, he'll pull over, he'll get in the car and then disappear, or jump in the road and you screech to a halt thinking you hit somebody and he disappears. I have looked high and low for any sort of record of an accident or anything else, and I found absolutely nothing. Yet this story persists again and again. I've interviewed police officers about it in the area. I've interviewed locals. Everybody knows it. And no matter how skeptical you are, even if you don't believe in ghosts, I defy you to drive down this road past that Rehoboth Seekonk town line marker and not at least glance over at the side of the road, to see if you might see something that night. That's the power of the story. I can't trace its origin other than it started to show up 50, 60 years ago. And we know hitchhiking is dangerous, and we know sometimes people don't reach their destinations. So maybe, just maybe, it help us, some sort of thought form that we've created over time. I don't know, but I do know that lots and lots of people know about it, and the story keeps coming up.
Yeah, especially in my area, everybody has heard of the Highway of Tears, you know, and we know there are multiple murderers along that trail, and that trail starts literally 3/4 of a mile behind my studio here.
Yeah.
And it's scary because I know we've been driving the highway for years, heading up north, and all of a sudden you see this shadow and you're like, is that a person on the road? You get closer, there's nothing there. And you're like, well, what was there? What happened to be there? And what happened at that point?
Well, that's the thing. It forces you to ask questions. And when you ask those questions, you go back in time. And when you go back in time, you might actually learn something about where you're from and where you live. And sometimes you do, sometimes when there's smoke, there is fire. You do find those stories. You find the stories of the murders and so on. But that's important. That's the important part, that it draws you in enough to start asking questions.
Well, when we come back from the break at the bottom of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio with Jeff Belanger, we are going to get into some paranormal that we don't normally think about. Christmas is haunted. Christmas has its own horror stories. Christmas has a lot of fables and legends that Jeff has brought out in his brand new book, The Fright Before Christmas, which you can get at jeffbellinger.com. All right. And it's even an audiobook on Audible, Apple, Libro FM, Kobo. Make sure you check it on out. It's in every major bookstore, even here where I am in Canada. I'm excited about it. Second half hour with Jeff Bellinger is coming up next. Christmas horror stories is our theme tonight. Why not? Anybody want to wrap my presents? I'm running a little late this year. We'll be right back. All right, Jeff, we got 5-minute break here. So
All right.
just so you know, during the breaks, our YouTube audience and podcast audience, like Facebook and all that kind of stuff, they can hear us. The radio audience cannot.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'll
So we're
still
just
mind my P's and Q's.
yeah. And so I just want to remind like anybody who's new here or you're a fan of Jeff's listening here for the first time, welcome. First of all, thank you for tuning us in. Second, we are a hybrid between a live radio show, a live podcast, and a live YouTube social media port. Takes us live on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and of course on YouTube. So you guys get to see behind the scenes of what we're doing. Radio audience, well, they get gypped. Plain and simple. They get gypped. And if you're wondering who this is, right below Jeff and myself, that is Dirty Filth. That is our resident cartoonist. Sometimes you will see his cat Blob show up and inspect the painting and the cartoon that he's drawing. Okay, but that's normal for around here. Quickly, hello to Pammy Smith. Good to see you again. And who else has joined us here that I haven't said hello to? Nope, we are caught up, and that is wonderful. And Jessica Davenport says, Jeff, I watched every speakeasy you did. Mind your P's and Q's.
Oh, the speakeasy. So if you don't know what that is, back when COVID hit, I got myself StreamYard, and we're a couple of weeks in, and I contacted some buddies in Michigan, and which is half a country away from me. And I said, hey, Brad, Tim, you guys want to get some beer tonight? And they said, yes. How? I don't know. How do we do that? And I said, well, let's just get on StreamYard. We'll stream it and we'll just have drinks and we'll talk maybe about the paranormal, but maybe not. And so we did that, and we were just having cocktails and talking about life, and people started tuning into that. And then I called all my paranormal friends because none of us were busy. And each almost nightly, I was just having drinks with friends, and we would talk about life. And people would say, like, you know what? I felt normal for the first time. I felt like I was having drinks with friends. And so we were all drinking alone at home together. And so that was the speakeasy. But at some point, people were like, you should bring that back. And I said, man, oh man, I don't think my liver could handle it. I can't, I can't drink like that anymore. You know, that's all we did in COVID. We just drank. And now I'm just like, oh God, I think I had enough.
Yeah, I'll tell you, during that time up here, especially in the winter, it was really hard because when that first part hit, normally we are outside, the February, March time, we are outside, skating on the ponds and the lakes for the last little bit, playing some outdoor shinny hockey or, snowmobiling and everything was just silent, and it sucked. It really, really sucked.
Yeah.
I found it was worse than forest fire season up here,
Have you found, I was talking to a buddy of mine about this the other day. Have you found that you have like almost no memory of that COVID time? Like I have a couple of like memories from the beginning, and then just it's gone. Like a year plus of my life, I have
I
almost
know.
no. It's just,
I think being in a small hick town, redneck town where I live, it was more watching people get extremely frustrated.
yeah,
Because I live in a real outdoor community. People are hiking, people are out hunting or boating or fishing or picnicking or camping. And up here when they they first shut it down for a month, and then it was added 2 weeks, and it kept adding, and then okay, well, people got to get groceries and stuff like that. And that part was hard. That part was hard because a lot of people like me got fat. I didn't go the other way. I and I'm still paying the price. Damn it. But what do you do? What do
yeah.
you do? But on the flip side, on the flip side, it was I got to sleep a lot, which was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yay.
Yay. Yay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I don't do well. I need people. I need to be around people or I'll literally just fall apart. And I missed live audiences so badly. And the first time I was in front of a live audience again, I remember I was like, I know we're not supposed to do this. Can I hug you all? Is that okay?
yeah, well, I was still doing the show, so that was still quite normal for me. I
Yeah,
still
sure.
had something to do, and
Yeah.
people had a place to come. But our audience sure grew from there. I can
Yeah.
tell you that. So,
Y-
give me 1 second. We got
Yep.
about 10 seconds. Thank you, Louis times two, Dragonfly, and T Bone for the super chats. Hi, Pix. How you doing? And here we go with the second half hour, everybody. Second half hour, Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Paranormal author, researcher Jeff Belanger is with us tonight, and we are talking about Christmas. Not happiness, not angels, not anything to do with those, but his brand new book called The Fright Before Christmas, which can be found at any major bookstore, online, in audiobook as well, or at jeffbellinger.com. Jeff, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. And Merry Scary Christmas to you.
I don't know about you, but I, I grew up in a family where Christmas was not that we were religious, because we definitely weren't, but it was about angels and it was about feelings and family and everything. Not thinking of that there was a complete. I was so shadowed as a kid, man, and sheltered. I never thought that there were people who were struggling at Christmas or alone during Christmas or anything growing up, because we always had a lot of family around us. But I mean, this is something that is a whole new different kettle of fish here, even for myself. Ghosts and ghouls and goblins around Christmas time. Why did you decide to do this book?
So it was born about 10 years ago, and I was putting up the Christmas lights around my house. I live in Massachusetts, so it was a cold early December day, one of those days where your fingers get numb and they don't work too well. Half the lights hadn't worked. I was hanging a wreath, a plastic wreath on my front door, completely fake. Even every part of it was fake. Hanging it on my front door knocker with this crafting wire, and all of a sudden the crafting wire just broke. The wreath falls to the ground, and I just screamed, humbug. I didn't scream humbug. It was actually a very colorful word that we can't say on the radio. But I started asking myself questions. I'm like, I'm a Halloween guy. I'm a paranormal guy. What am I doing at Christmas? And then I was thinking, like, why the wreath? Why the evergreens? Why December 25th? Why Santa Claus? Why St. Nicholas? Why do we go through so much trouble and money for this one day? Why do we go into hawk for this? Why? And then a song lyric popped into my head. Andy Williams from the early 1960s. There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. And I went, wait a minute, scary ghost stories? I didn't grow up with scary ghost stories at Christmas. It was just Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And so I said, I need answers to these questions. And so I picked the holiday apart completely, broke it down to all its original pieces. And as I started to put it back together again, I went, oh my gosh, it turns out, Dave, Halloween is the second most frightening holiday of the year, and it is a distant, distant second to Christmas. I mean, Halloween, sure, the veil is thin. Ghosts scare some people. I get that. But Christmas could kill you. There are monsters lurking that are literally here to eat our children, eat us, kill us, maim us, beat us, keep us in line. We could literally be hurt. And as I started to unravel all this, I realized, like, wait a minute. this really is an amazing holiday. It used to be all inclusive, all people, didn't matter what you believed or didn't believe, who you prayed to or didn't pray to. It was always based on one thing, and that's the winter solstice. That is the shortest day. It is the longest night. It's a time to be afraid because we have to worry if we have enough food to get through the winter, enough fuel to burn and keep us warm, if our houses will hold up under all that snow. It is the most frightening time of the year. You're looking down the barrel of a gun that is winter, and you could be doomed. And when we're that scared, there's a couple of ways we could go, but we tend to just party. And it's out of those parties that so many parts of this holiday were born. Parts that have roots, most of them pagan, but that vary across many countries, many cultures, and many religions.
Yeah, and I can see that. I mean, exactly the way you describe it, I think it's perfect. I don't need to really add to that. But I mean, when you started looking into this, were people having paranormal experiences, supernatural experiences, angelic experiences because of the time or maybe their religious belief, or was there horror stories happening? What were you able to find?
So at first, you're talking about a time when people are supposed to come together, put their differences aside, because whether it's Saturnalia or the old Yule festivals in Scandinavia, it was a time for us to put our differences aside, give each other gifts, drink from the same drinking horn, signifying we're all equal right now, make merry because we know we're going to need each other to get through this winter. But it's also, secondary to that is it's a time to hibernate. It's a time for us to come inside and keep ourselves safe and warm because it's dangerous out there. If you could put your mind back just a century or two, not that long ago, this was a time when, I mean, if you're caught outside in a snowstorm unprepared, you die. Like this, you don't call for help with your cell phone. Like you're stuck out there. You could literally die. Don't find enough food, you can die. So many things, and we want to keep our children safe. And out of that fear, many of these monsters started to lurk. And whether the monsters are metaphorical or literal, it's kind of irrelevant. If your kid goes out in the woods and doesn't come back, whether it was the elements that killed your child or Krampus, it almost doesn't matter at some point. So I think in some ways, these monsters of legend and lore started to become more and more of a reality during this very dangerous time of year. And then, of course, you've got like the Norse god Odin, riding through the sky on his wild hunt. And you hear things in the winter that you don't hear the rest of the year. You might just think it's the wind whipping through the naked trees, but it doesn't sound like that in the spring or the summer or fall. Or is it the shrieking cries of spirits, as they're being chased down on this wild hunt? It's a time that you're literally scared, and there's signs. It's not just cold weather. I mean, there's sights and sounds that keep us petrified this whole season.
No, you're very right. I remember when I was a kid, uh, I think it was about 5 years old, Jeff, and it was Christmas Eve, and I could hear my parents with their friends playing cards, having a good time downstairs, and I was all pumped up because Santa Claus was coming the next day. And I remember looking out my window and where I used to live, we didn't get a lot of snow during the Christmas season. And I remember that it was a clear sky. This would have been about 1978, showing my age now. And I remember looking up and seeing, and to this day, I swear I saw it, was a bright red nose flying through the sky. And it bothered me, and I actually started to cry because I thought, oh no, I'm awake. Santa's not gonna know I'm awake. He's not gonna come here. And like I was like, oh my God, that's Rudolph, flying and they're coming to this area. And I literally remember having a panic attack over this. And I knew I couldn't go downstairs because my parents would get mad at me that I was still awake because it was like a whopping 9:30 at night. Okay. And they're having fun with their friends, and let's just say I didn't want to get in trouble for still being awake. And I remember quickly jumping into my bed and pretending I was asleep with the covers over my head. I mean, this is stuff that traumatizes people at that time of year.
Well, sure, because that was very much your reality, is that Rudolph
Yeah.
and Santa are coming. And the irony, of course, is that at that point in 78, Rudolph wasn't very old. He was just a couple decades old. He's not part of the original eight. But at the same time, that was your reality. And that reality was created for you by your family, your culture, your community, right? And so but your fear was real and your anxiety was very real,
Oh
because
yeah.
this, and that's the funny thing about all this stuff, right? I mean, the holidays, there really is magic that happens there. There's magic that happens during this season if you sort of let it come through. um Also, if you think about it, everything that you know about what you're supposed to feel about this holiday was taught to you in a ghost story. The Possibly the greatest ghost story ever crafted by a master, right? Charles Dickens, Christmas Carol. He wrote this story, and it's fair to say Charles Dickens invented Christmas. Truly. I mean, yes, I know the date predates Dickens by a long shot. However, Christmas was not really much of a holiday before Dickens created this masterpiece. And then it started to really blow up in England. Not in America. In America, it was not a thing. It was a day you went to work, a day you went to school, just another day. But that story about a miserly man getting haunted first by his old business partner, and then having to run down the gauntlet of his own past, present, and then future if he stays on the path he's on, that story scared Scrooge straight. And it's at the end of the story, of course, that you realize who Scrooge is. It dawns on you, right? You go, oh no, I know who Scrooge is. He's me. I'm Scrooge. I'm getting older, right? I'm getting more miserly. But the moral is, the only way Scrooge could see the light is if he got himself down into a very dark and frightening place. That's what this season, first of all, the darkness is built in, the coldness is built in, the fear is really built in. And only through that fear and darkness are we able to see that light. So if we're haunted in the best possible way by our own past, we have this chance to be redeemed, to make the changes within ourselves, but only if we're scared. I don't know about you, Dave. I don't know. I don't have any friends that could just wake up one day and say, I should just eat better, right? Usually it takes like a health scare. You know what I mean? You go to your doctor and they're like, yeah, you're about to have a heart attack. And you go, oh,
That was
geez.
that was a week ago today for me, to
Yeah,
be honest.
right.
So thank you.
Yeah. So right. So I mean, we all know, like, I should eat better, I should exercise, I should do these things. Yeah, that. But once your doctor says, yep, this is it, your ticker's gonna go and you're gonna die, do you say, oh, well, now it's time to really make some changes? And that's the thing. We need to be scared straight. It's in all of us. These monsters are here to help, truly, whether it's Krampus or the ghost of Christmas past or Jacob Marley or what have you. um, Christmas was always traditionally a time for ghost stories. That, not Halloween. I mean, go back to Victorian era and so on. You told those stories at Christmas time, at the solstice, the longest night. That was what this was always about. And I think over time, I mean, I could tell you what happened. It's not that long of a story, but we turned Christmas into total commercialism, having everything to do with the economy and spending and all this other stuff. And we sort of lost our way from its true meaning from many, many centuries ago. But the great news is we're able to take that back. You know what I mean? Like you are allowed to redefine the legend of this holiday every single year. If something doesn't work for you, you can fix it right now, and you can adopt, new ideas. You can drop old ideas, and I think that's sort of the moral of the story. But these dark, scary things are making a roaring comeback. Krampus got a movie deal back in 2015. Once you get a movie deal, you're blowing up. It's tough to contend with that. But not just Krampus, other stuff too. There's other monsters out there that are starting to show up in Netflix specials, and and on the web again, and people are, and they're showing up in holiday parades all over the world, not just in their native countries. So I think we're living in a time where you're going to see a renaissance of all the darkness that was a part of this holiday just 150 years ago. I think it's starting to make a comeback.
What is the popularity of people wanting to be scared? I mean, I can understand it around Halloween time, people getting excited. I mean, Halloween's turned into almost a 2-month event now.
Yeah,
Okay, Labor Day weekend's over. Let's start celebrating Halloween now. And God forbid, pumpkin spice lattes all over the place. Okay, and everything pumpkin spice, but I mean, it really is becoming its own season,
sure,
much like sure Christmas has. So, I mean, I look at everybody preparing there and then forgetting that there's all these ghost stories with Christmas as well. I mean, even if you go biblical, there are many Christmas ghost stories.
Well,
Well,
right, yeah.
right. Yeah.
An angel
And
of the Lord appeared before the shepherds in their field, and they were terrified, right? That's literally, which is also our only clue as to when Jesus was born. But no, we love to be scared because it makes us feel alive. It taps into something primal. When you're afraid, you're not thinking. You're in just, fight or flight mode. It's a
Yes,
very primal state of being. But also, when you're afraid in a place where you know you're ultimately safe, well, that's like riding a roller coaster, right? It's exciting, it's thrilling, but ultimately you're safe, you're strapped in, and so on. So I think we have been embracing the darker side of things more and more in more modern times, because it must call to some of us, sort of collectively. I'll tell you this: I've seen some things that have brightened my dark soul quite a bit, just in the last few weeks. Yeah, I don't know about near you, but those around Halloween, they have these like 18-foot skeletons, super expensive but gorgeous, and you see them at Halloween. They're like
yes.
leaning against houses and stuff. I've passed no less than 3 houses in the last 2 weeks as I've been out at night, doing my story tours and coming home late. 3 houses where all the Christmas lights are up, but the skeletons are up too. And so the skeletons are like putting the Christmas lights on the house, and I just stop and I just chef's kiss, like that's perfect. I love it. Right? Why not? Why not carry those Halloween decorations all the way through? Um, yeah, I mean, we do like to be scared, and I think that fear is what sort of drives us to make some changes, and that's a good thing. Fear makes us do things differently, as you're finding out last week at the doctor.
Exactly. What do you find scary? Like for you, what's your favorite scary haunting about it? If I were to look at it, I would say the possibility of the Grinch, even though the Grinch may be something that is a caricature, but I mean a lot of people get robbed over Christmas. Their
Yeah.
houses get broken into. Okay, that is something that would absolutely rip my heart out. And I don't know if I could all of a sudden, later that night start singing Christmas carols around the turkey dinner because they didn't take the turkey, and still being happy, but which ones really affected you?
What scares me? I mean, holiday
Well,
related or in general?
maybe not scares you holiday related, but ones that you believe like would be traumatizing.
So, one of the bummers about this holiday is that, Hallmark has sold us this bill of goods about how everything has to be perfect, which is impossible, of course. Nothing, it's never going to be perfect, and not for all people. And in our striving to create these perfect experiences, some people spend more money than they should. They put themselves into financial danger. They they feel like they let their kids down. They let themselves down. I think there's an awful lot of depression that emerges around this, and that really bums me out, because it doesn't have to be that way. You're allowed to define it for you and for your family and so on. I think those are the most heartbreaking stories, where people are just desperately trying to create something that's artificial anyway. And that's such a shame, because it really, if you can strip it down, it can be what you need it to be. Whether it's just like, hey, let's just make this about family, and let's all cook a meal together, and let's celebrate what we have. That's wonderful. Like, what a great thing. If you're trying to get the latest video games and you're going to go broke, spending all that money, that's not really fun for anybody. That's an awful lot of stress. And so yeah, I those are the kind of stories that really sort of bum me out. And those are self-inflicted wounds, of course, but I do understand the pressure. I'm a dad. I got a kid. I get the pressure of trying to create this sort of like perfect fairy tale for your children.
Oh, I hear you. And that's probably the biggest fear that a lot of people have is the failure. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
it
of
it
course.
really is. And especially in tough times right now where everybody is struggling.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when you have to choose between getting a Christmas present or putting a turkey dinner on the table, what's more important? And at this
Right.
time of year, it shouldn't be that way. But let's talk. We got about 4.5 minutes here. People love the Krampus.
Yeah.
For people who may not know what the Krampus is, fill us in.
Yeah, well, he's right over my shoulder. So Krampus he hails from Austria, and he's been called the Christmas devil. He's covered in fur. He's got two horns. He's got a long red forked tongue. He's wrapped in chains so you can hear him coming, and he carries a scratchy basket or a burlap sack over his shoulder. And he shows up on December 5th. That is Krampusnacht. He shows up and he'll go around the world and he'll snatch up all the naughty boys and girls, put him into his sack, drag him back to his mountain lair, and the punishment can be lethal. And then December 6th, which is St. Nicholas Day, when St. Nicholas comes around to bring the presents to the good girls and boys, that's all that's left because Krampus has done the dirty work of getting rid of all the naughty ones. So he's really the enforcer. People have called him the anti St. Nicholas, but not true. They are cohorts. They're the original good cop, bad cop. They sometimes arrive together, but always serving the role. He was the consequence that sort of got pushed back into the shadows around the 1920s once Santa Claus started to really rise into prominence. And it's funny, you mentioned earlier about the Grinch. I mean, I would argue that the Grinch by Dr. Seuss is very derivative of Krampus, right? I thought when I was growing up, I'm like, oh man, there was no Krampus when I was growing up. But then I went, wait a minute, we had the Grinch, lived on Mount Crumpet, right? In the mountains, covered in fur. He didn't have horns, but his hair would turn into those little horn-like devil horns. So I think that he was at very least the shadow of Krampus. He was always there to give us an alternative to the shiny, happy, ho ho ho, of Christmas.
Oh, very true. Very true. I mean, Krampus, though, was he kidnapping children who were bad? Was
Well,
he?
yeah, that's the original story. Is that you better be good or else. Or when I was a kid, this you better be good or Santa will bring you less presents. Or at the very worst, coal and sticks in your stocking. That's as bad as it could get for me. But imagine growing up in Germany in like 1870 when your parents said to you, like, you better be good or Krampus is going to yank you out of your toasty warm little bed, stuff you in a sack with other naughty children, drag you off into the cold mountains and kill you. It was a completely different motivator. And of course today the modern day Krampus and the Krampus runs, they've toned it down quite a bit. They don't abduct children anymore, but that's the original story. That's how it all began.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it amazes me that looking back on it as a child, how much you didn't, how much these actually affected you, and tried to push you out of your comfort zone. And parents used to use it as to their advantage, much like that stupid elf on a shelf these days.
Oh my God, the elf on
God, I
the
hate
shelf.
that thing.
Oh, we all do. And the elf on the shelf, I would argue, is a derivative of the old Swedish Tomten, which was the helper elf around your home. He would help you around the house. He'd slap you around a little bit if you need to be kept in line, if you're getting lazy and not taking care of your chores. Uh, serves you for a whole year, and all he asks for a year of service is that you give him a bowl of sticky sweet rice pudding on Christmas Eve, and that's there's so many elements of that elf, all hat and beard and so on, that I think sort of translates right into the elf on the shelf. I'm not sure there's any new ideas when it comes to Christmas. There's just sort of like this whitewashing of very old and much darker ideas.
I'll tell you, whoever invented that elf on a shelf, they need a good shaking themselves, because that thing, I've seen parents, that's what I love about Facebook and Instagram is you get to see what parents and how creative they could get
Sure.
with it. But I mean, they're making that thing look evil. You
So
know,
I've got
yeah,
one friend He's a huge Star Wars fan, and he's got this Mandalorian action figure, and he's got 2 kids, and he tells his kids, he puts the Mandalorian on the shelf and says, "The Mandalorian will keep us safe from the elf on the shelf all month."
Beautiful. JeffBelanger.com is Jeff's website where you can get his brand new book, The Fright Before Christmas, or at any major bookstore. We will be back with more Christmas horror stories right after this. All right, that was a fast hour.
Yeah, right on.
Right on. Okay, I'm going to turn things over. We got about 6 minutes. I'm going to grab a quick break, step away for a minute. I'm going to turn this over to Dirty Filth, and he can show everybody the cartoon. And if you want to chat with him, you can, Jeff, or if you want to step away for a couple minutes, that'd be great too.
Sounds good.
Dirty, don't forget to turn your mic on.
Sorry about that. Whenever I ink the lettering, it's just I have to get right into zone. I can only do it in one shot, otherwise it gets all weird. Oops. Yes, Clamster. When I'm drawing, my tongue is sticking out. Sometimes it gets dry and I have to remember to stick it back in my mouth. I'm not kidding. I have no idea why that happens. It just does. Some kind of weird reflex. There's a hockey player that used to play for the Oilers that did that all the time. So I figured I would draw a cartoon of a gray alien plonking Santa Claus in the dome when he comes down the Christmas tree because he's not accustomed to customs on the earth. But he propped him up against a stolen present. Stolen present. He's not killing. He's not killing Christmas. Don't worry, folks.
How you doing, Dirty?
Good, Dave. How are you?
I'm good. What are we drawing tonight? Yes, operator. I ploinked him in the head and I propped him up against stolen present so he won't swallow his tongue. Very nice. Very nice.
I think things like that would probably happen if the aliens live here.
Absolutely. Oh, hey, Clam. How you doing? And who else has joined us here? I think that's about it. Clam's the newest. Got everybody else. Starduster, how you doing? Big thank you tonight to Louis ×2, Dragonfly, and T-Bone for the super chats. Very much appreciate the love. Remember, if you're new here and Jeff's brought you over, we're here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. And you can hit subscribe, ring that bell. We'd appreciate it. Cliff Sy, how are you? Chris Teen, nice to see you. And we're going to get going in about 30 seconds. And reminder that our store is open on our website, spacedoutradio.com. We do not have ugly swag, people. We got actually clothing you might want to wear. Philip Baca, how you doing? Good to see you. And yes, Kira, just so you know, I am hanging tight on my diet right now. Hanging tight. It's Luscious Jules' birthday. Well, thank you. We'll be singing happy birthday to Jules in the next break. How about that? Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Vandellas. Vandellas is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight we are talking about The Fright Before Christmas, a brand new book out by Jeff Belanger. JeffBelanger.com is his website. You can find the book at any major bookstore or online and in audio as well. Right on. Jeff, thank you so much for being here tonight. Very much appreciated.
Good to be with you as we're closing in, getting so close to the solstice.
And no snow here yet. Well,
Yeah.
very, you know, usually around this time of year, we have about 2-3 feet of snow. And I maybe got half an inch right now. It's not pleasant here right now. Not feeling very Christmassy. I mean, when you're not slipping and sliding on the roads, that's not Christmas, you know?
Yeah, I get it. We need that. It's part of what we expect, what we've come to expect from it. Where I live in Massachusetts, we had that. I don't know if you've read about that bomb cyclone that went up the East Coast today. Boy, they weren't kidding. It was torrential rain and flooding around here. Not very Christmassy.
No, you lost your internet there for a while too.
I lost my internet all day. I was not sure if I was going to be doing this properly or on the phone, hoping for a connection. So we lucked out.
Yeah, we're glad you're here, my man. We are glad you are here. And we got so many different types of monsters to talk about when it comes to The Fright Before Christmas and other Yuletide monsters that you like going with. So tell us some of your favorites. I mean, is it paranormal stories? Are there a lot of ghosts that come out at Christmas time?
I think the ghosts, we're really talking about Dickens, right? We're talking about that, and of course, I think also there's something about the holiday that it's one of those landmarks on the road that is the year. And when we get to the holiday season, we can't help but think of who we've lost over the past year. So I think that is a natural part of the holidays for all of us, is especially if this is the first holiday without someone that we cared about. We can't help but sort of call them up. And so I do think that this holiday lends itself to inherently missing those we've lost before, whether it was long ago or more recently. But for the most part, this one belongs to the monsters, and so many different countries have notions of dark things that lurk during this time of year. In Bulgaria, for example, they have the Karakonkalis, who shows up during the 12 days of Christmas, or what they call the unbaptized days, the unholy days. And the Karakonkalis is a shape-shifting subterranean Bigfoot who comes out only at night, and his objective is to try to jump on your back and claw at you until dawn, when he has to go back underground. But he's a shapeshifter. He can look like anyone or anything, and he's got a riddle to ask. And the word black has to be in the answer to the riddle, or your life is in danger. And what I like about this legend from Bulgaria is that, when they talk about his natural state, he's this hairy monster with claws and glowing red eyes. Anyone would know to run from that. But the fact that he's a shapeshifter and can look like anyone or anything adds this element that changes things, because that's a lot more realistic, right? Because we know there's monsters in the world. We have access to the news. We see that there's monsters doing horrible things every day, whether it's mass shootings or acts of terrorism, or hurting people, or stealing, or whatever. We know there's monsters out there. But those monsters look a lot like us. They look incredibly familiar. And so when we talk about the Karakonkalis, I think he's rather poignant, because he is a monster, but has the ability to look just like us, which is kind of like the real monsters that we know about. Then there's also he's trying to get in your house, and that's something that they're on the lookout for. That's something they're afraid of.
Boy, you sure hit home there for quite a second, because this will be my first Christmas without my mother. I lost my mother in June, and so I'm very curious to see, like, what will happen this Christmas, because we're actually going down and spending time with my father during Christmas and this is, we got all the family coming over, and I know that energy of my mother is going to be there.
Of course you will. Yeah.
But the question is, what will move, or what will happen to show that? I'm going to be sitting there looking for the signs all over the place, of something moving, or all of a sudden one of her favorite Christmas ornaments maybe falling off the tree, or something along those lines. That's what I'm waiting for, is to see if something like that happens.
So here's the thing, right? With that, did you have a set of signs you had talked about ahead of time with your mother, or no?
My mother, believe it or not, was very, very connected, but due to her religious beliefs, she always shoved them to the side.
Sure.
Okay. And there has been strangeness in my parents' place. So going back to 2018, when my 29-year-old nephew passed away of a fentanyl overdose, before he was in rehab, for that, he stayed at my parents', and he would get up at 4:00 every morning to go get a drink of water from the kitchen. And I mean, my nephew was the kind of kid where if you looked at him, you would have never thought he had a drug issue. Like, he was healthy. He would go to the gym, 6 days a week, but he had his demons. And so the night after we found out he passed, my mother woke up at 4:00 in the morning because her bedroom door opened, and she heard a young boy's voice saying, "Hi, Grandma, I'm here." Okay. And she thought that it was me and my son, who had driven all night to get back home.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like I'd finished the radio show, put my boy in our vehicle, and drove down all night. So she went looking around. She's like, she called me David. She goes, David, and are you here? And she looks around the house, and everything's dark, right? And that was that, because my mom used to sleep with the bedroom door closed, and yet here her door was wide open, right? And so following that, the night before we were going to pick up his belongings, I was sleeping on my parents' couch, and my dad always tucks a garbage bag into one of the drawers, so that way, the day before we had family gathering and everything, and we had dinner, there was pop cans and soda cans all over the place, so he put them all in the recycling bag. And 4 o'clock in the morning, that recycling bag in the kitchen gets knocked over, and cans are all over the kitchen.
Wow.
And I said to my nephew, I said, his name was Bryce, but I always called him Stu. I said, Stu, come on. I'm trying to sleep here, man. I got a busy day tomorrow. And everything went silent again. Right.
Huh.
And the next day was pretty cool. Had a couple of real cool experiences with him the next day. Because, do you mind if I finish? Or
No, are you kidding?
So anyways, the next day we go pick up his belongings from the recovery house, and I didn't know. We knew he died in a park, that he overdosed in a park, and he couldn't have picked a more beautiful place, to be honest. He really couldn't have. And so I'm like, okay, bud, like, tell me where this park is. I don't know how to get there. And all of a sudden I hear his voice, turn right at the next set of lights, Uncle. So sure enough, I turn right at the next set of lights. Hot damn, there's the park. Right.
Huh.
And as I'm driving there, one of the park caretakers is on one of their John Deere UTVs driving along the grass. I pull her over, and I'm like, I said, I'm sorry to bother you, but there was a young man found dead here on last week. I said, that was my nephew. His mother is in the vehicle. Do you know anything about it? And she breaks down crying right in front of me. She's like, I'm one of the ones who found him.
Oh, wow.
And she took us right to the spot. And it was just like, it was very magical, like it was supposed to happen that way.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. So I'm getting back to the original story. I'm very excited to see what happens on Christmas now, on how my mother is just going to show herself. That's what's going to be incredible.
But so, I mean, I have no doubt your mom's still with you, with your family, of course. Like that. Why would that love doesn't end? I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe that for a second. So I get that. And one of the things I've learned, I've been a hospice volunteer before, and when you learn through grief counseling and things like that, is that sometimes it's the biggest days that are remarkably the easiest to get through, because you see it coming, Christmas is coming, it's going to be emotionally charged and everything else. And you're so busy and you're so preoccupied. Sometimes that's not when it hits you. It's the little tiny thing out of nowhere that you got to worry about. It's being at the grocery store and seeing, mom's favorite coffee on the shelf and just going, oh, right. I didn't count on that today. And so I think sometimes these signs that we get, and I do believe we get them for sure. I think they sometimes come at a time of their choosing, not ours. Right.
Oh, true enough. Yeah. I have a feeling I know when it's going to happen, because one of the things that was tradition in my family was my mom always made sure every one of us, from the grandchildren to the children, all got socks every year. It sounds minuscule, but my mom, about 20 years ago, all of a sudden one Christmas we didn't get socks. And we're like, Mom, where's the socks? And she's like, you guys always make fun of me every year about socks. So this year I said, screw it. I don't want to be laughed at about socks. And we're like, Mom, we weren't making fun of you. Like, this is important stuff here. Yeah. Where's the bloody socks? Like, you're holding out on the socks for us. right? So she's like, fine, next year. So she actually went out after Christmas to get us all socks, right? And so I'm curious because my dad is like, I don't know what to get you kids. This is, because he's worried my dad's not having a good time without my mom.
No. Yeah.
But he's like, what do I do? I said, Dad, socks. That's it. You don't need to go spend, $100 or $500 or $20 on any of us. Just get us some gosh darn socks.
Yep.
That's it. Just continue it. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to do more. No, you don't. Just get us some gosh darn socks, man.
I love that. Yeah, that's it. I mean, every family, we've got our stories, our traditions, our signs, and so on. So I hope you get your socks, Dave. I really do.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping. I'm gonna be sub pissed if I don't, man. I'm gonna be so upset if I don't.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, right? Like there's it's funny how you've got each of our families has their own little quirks and things that we do for the holidays that makes it special and unique to us. And there's plenty of overlap, but that's
What's your tradition?
That's the stuff. Oh God. So we usually have our biggest meal on Christmas Eve, which is great because that's all about the anticipation. But our Christmas Day dinner has always been spaghetti and meatballs, which is all pre-made and it's easy. And we're not Italian or anything, but it's just such an easy thing to do. And we're so exhausted and we're so like, want to play with presents and so on that it's for me, like spaghetti and meatballs has come to mean that finality, that last bit of Christmas. And then it's over, and then we got to go back to the real world, from that little fantasy break that I guess we all take. So that's one of them. Also, we had this shirt that had been regifted among some of the men in my family. There's just a flannel plaid shirt that went from my grandfather to my dad to me back to my grandfather. Same shirt, never worn. Just literally you'd get it and you'd set it aside for next year and then wrap it up again. And it took 3 or 4 years before we even caught on. We're like, oh, that's the same kind of shirt I got you. And you're like, no, it's not the same kind of shirt you got me. It's the same shirt. You got me. It's never been worn. It's just going to keep going around and around.
Oh, I love that. Love that. We used to do, my uncle and I, before he passed away, we used to do that with an empty box. Do you remember the Atari 2600?
Heck yeah.
Okay, I had one.
Yeah.
And so my uncle goes to get me asteroids for Christmas. Goes to the local Kmart, okay, which was the hot place to go back then, and gets me the game. So Christmas Day, I unwrap it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Go to put it in brought my Atari over to Grandma's house. Go to put it in. It's an empty box. There's no game cartridge inside.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
Yeah, there was no game inside. I got the box, but no game. So that started a beautiful tradition until he passed. But
but that first time couldn't have been fun or funny.
No. I was like, "What's this?" And I was upset. Like I'm 8 years old. Video games are huge right now.
Yeah. Oh gosh, the empty box.
Got the empty box.
I'll keep it in mind. Because in this day and age of ordering everything online, and sometimes the stuff just doesn't get here on time. You're wrapping up pictures of the gift, which is just great. Nothing like your kid opening up a photo and going, "Oh, I can't wait till that arrives in 2 weeks."
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Isn't that nice. Hey, what about Christmas trolls? You write about this in the Friday Christmas.
Oh God. So we've got probably the most frightening that you've got to worry about, Dave, closing in on us, is the Grilla from Iceland. The Grilla is a mountain ogre. She's got 13 tails. She lives way up in the mountains, and she comes down around the solstice. And she doesn't discriminate with naughty or nice. She doesn't care. Any children out lurking are going to get snatched up, brought back to her lair, cut up into her stew, and eaten. So the thing about Iceland is that there's so many great stories of trolls and monsters there. When Iceland was first settled, just over 1,000 years ago, there were no people there. When Europeans first settled, it was covered by ice. The ice retreated, and then there was trolls and monsters and imps and fairies and so on. And then as people started to settle into, villages and towns grew to cities, those magical creatures had to get pushed back up into the mountains. And Iceland has such a strong belief in trolls. They've literally rerouted highways to go around troll rocks or whatever that were thought to be home to trolls. So it's part of the culture. I mean, it may sound silly to people that don't know much about Iceland, but it is a very normal part of the culture to talk about that stuff. But come the solstice, and you got to realize how far north Iceland is. In Reykjavik, there's only about 4 hours of sunlight around the winter solstice. That's it. 20 hours of darkness. Go further north, it's even less. Get to the very northern tip of Iceland, and you're almost at the Arctic Circle. There's no daylight. The sun doesn't rise. And that's a scary time. And it's a time for Icelanders to come inside and tell their children, this is when we stay inside because the Grýla is lurking. And she's become, at this point, a pop culture figure. So, for example, when we go into the malls, we've got Santa, and you can get your picture taken with Santa. If you land in the Reykjavik airport right now, you'll find a giant cauldron with this big ogre standing behind it, and you can get in the cauldron and take your picture with the Grýla, which is just amazing, and that's not the only place. I mean, she's sort of all over the country. She's become just not just a figure from folklore, but a pop culture figure. And she's also the matriarch of this whole dysfunctional Icelandic family of magical creatures. She's in charge of the 13 Yule lads who come down all throughout the month of December and wreak havoc in our homes.
My goodness. Jeff Belanger is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got 3 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour here. Jeff, I mean, with these creatures, these trolls that sit around, are they in North American homes? Are they seen? Have they been photographed?
Well, photograph seen, not so much, but definitely discussed, as some of these cultures, of course, have brought them over as they've moved to the U.S. and Canada and other places. They bring their stories with them, and in some cases maybe they're just metaphorical, but also, like for you, when Rudolph became a reality, when you were so scared about messing up something related to Christmas. It's similar. The Yule lads, for example, in Iceland are on the news each night because one arrives each day for 13 consecutive days and each day for 2 weeks. So the news will cover like, oh, tonight is the Gullygawk, tonight is the Spoon Licker or whatever. And they cover which Yule lad is arriving on this day. And it's something that people look forward to. It's something people talk about. It's decorations they put up. It's part of the fabric of their culture and lore.
Really? See, that's just so bizarre to me.
Well,
It
sure.
really is bizarre. I do have to know, with 90 seconds to go, what's with the Yule cat?
So the Yule cat, that's the last of the Icelandic monsters. The Yule cat arrives on Christmas Day. It's very critical in Iceland that you be wearing brand new clothes on Christmas Day, that you've worked hard all year, that you can afford new clothes for you and your family, and you need to be wearing them. Because if you're not wearing new clothes on Christmas Day, the Yule cat shows up, he'll kill you and eat you. And part of that, I think, is helpful to the Icelandic economy, that you're buying new clothes and so on. And part of it is to prove that you're a worthy and good worker, that you're staying employed, that you're earning money, and you're able to provide the basics like brand new clothes. But that's the Yule cat, all three. And the Yule cat, by the way, also making it back into pop culture. There's a Netflix movie called The Christmas Chronicles 2 with Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. And one of the bad creatures in the movie is called Yule cat. So once they start making it into movies, watch out. They're going to be at your doorstep next.
Great. I got 3 cats upstairs. Now I got to worry about one of them turning into a Yule cat just because we're not going to be home for Christmas. Oh, wonderful. Thanks for putting that in my brain there, Jeff.
You got it.
Much appreciate that. Jeff, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we're about 20 seconds from going to break here. And when we come back, I want to get some audience questions in. I do have 1 or 2 in there for you right now. And I know our audience loves to to participate in this show. So if you're on our YouTube side, put your questions in capital letters, so that way old Davey and his old eyes can read them and get them off to Jeff here. Make sure you add this book to your collection, The Fright Before Christmas. It can be found at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Amazon, Amazon Canada, bookshop.org, and you can hear the audiobook narrated by Jeff on Audible, Apple, Libro.fm, Kobo, and, of course, at jeffbelanger.com. I snuck in the French version there.
Yeah, mais oui. Ça va?
My French is very rough.
I just saw one of the questions. Has Dave Schrader ever kissed you on your face or forehead? Yes. Yes, he has.
Nice. You lucky guy.
Oh, God. I've known Dave for too long. I've got to be like 15 years now. Something like that. Like more. Probably maybe 16, 17 years. It's crazy.
He is really one of the greats in our field.
Yeah. He's a sweetheart. For sure.
Yeah, I remember when I was still kind of new into this game, and the first time I talked to him, and I was nervous because I mean it's Dave frickin' Schrader, you know what I'm saying? and we had a conversation, and he was just the most supportive, pat you on the back, all things positive kind of guy, and I've learned a lot from him. I really have learned a lot from him, and he's just he wears his heart on his sleeve, and there's no act there. It's not.
Yeah.
That's just Dave, and great human being.
So we're fortunate that Dave and I get to see each other somewhat regularly at events and paranormal events and stuff around. We both get booked at some of the same stuff, and when Dave and I hang out, man, usually by the end of the night, my stomach hurts from laughing. It's just a laugh riot, and so much fun to be around that guy. Always has been.
Yeah. I'd love to meet him face to face. I really would. He's one of the guys out of anybody in this field that I want to meet. Man. And he's just pure class. Class.
Well, he gets around plenty. You can find him somewhere. He's always doing events and things.
Oh, I know, but I'm stuck up here, man. I'm stuck up here. Right? Yeah. I'd love to get you guys up on the Gold Rush Trail just to see how haunted this is, man.
Oh God, yeah. What's your nearest city?
I am a 5.5 hour drive northeast from Vancouver.
Oh gosh, yeah, you're way up there.
Yeah.
I've been to Vancouver. Vancouver's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been to Alaska.
Yeah. So like once you hit what we call the Fraser Canyon, that's where the Gold Rush Trail starts.
Yep.
And the Fraser River that goes into the canyon, believe it or not, historically speaking, because I know you love history, actually at one time had more paddle boats than the Mississippi River.
I believe it. When the Gold Rush was happening, I've worked on enough ghost stories related to Gold Rush towns and boom towns and ghost towns related to the gold mining. There were 3 ways to get gold during the Gold Rush. You could go and dig for it and maybe get lucky and find a bunch of gold. That's one way. Awful lot of work though. You could sell shovels and picks to people that went all the way across the country and didn't think to bring one. And you sell those shovels and picks at a ridiculous markup because there's nowhere else for them to go. That's another way. And then, of course, the easiest way is you find someone that just found gold and you rob them and kill them. And those stories just, pop up again and again and again.
Probably from my area straight up to a mining town called, why is it on? why can't I think of the town now? Starts with a B. Anyways, this town, it is so haunted along this trail because the original trail, for the most part, has been untouched.
Hmm.
And this trail here, Barkerville is the town.
Okay.
This trail here is the reason why the Royal Canadian Mounted Police were created,
Oh.
because the Americans coming up all had guns, and Canada wasn't really a gun country. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, all this violence started coming up uh, through the gold rush, and they're like, well, we have to do something. So they created the Northwest Mounted Police, which eventually became the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Love it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Once you let Americans in, everything just sort of goes to hell.
I don't mind. I love the Americans. Hold on a second here, man. We're coming back in like 5 seconds. Thank you to T-Bone, Dragon, and Louis ×2 for the super chats. Get your questions in. Here we go. Second half of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Final time tonight, Jeff Belanger is with us with his new book, The Fright Before Christmas, which can be found online, any major bookstore, or audiobook online as well on Audible, Apple, Libro.fm, and Kobo, narrated by Jeff himself. We're talking Christmas monsters. Not a lot of books about this, but Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your new book with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity. I think it's when you look at the Christmas holiday and you break it apart and put it all back together again, and you realize that there's a reason we put up the evergreens. There's a reason we put garland on the tree and we put up lights for the long dark night. When you know those reasons, then it has more meaning. You're not just doing it out of habit or because it's expected of you or whatever. Anyway, for me, I started to want to do those things, to keep the bad cheer out, to keep the house illuminated on the dark night, to be a beacon. And that meaning really helped me sort of like find the spirit of the holiday again.
All right. Well, I love it. And I love the fact that there is that special meaning towards everything. Yeah. And, hey, that leads to a couple of questions that we actually have here. Starting off with Lee over in the UK. Why the fairy on top of the tree?
Well, so it's often an angel, right? So if you're being religious about it, then I think the angel harkens back to the when the angel of the Lord appeared before the shepherds who were terrified near the birth of the Christ child. If you want to go fairy, well, then that's just you getting in touch with your pagan roots related to the tree, related to, the evergreen, which is the tree more powerful than winter, the tree that winter couldn't kill. So, or you put a star up there, or if you're at my house, you put Krampus at the top of the tree because you become such a big fan of him.
All right, let's move on to a good question from Simon over in Australia. Is the fear of ghosts relatively new, or have they always been scary to people?
Oh, I think so the very first form of religion was not worshiping the god of the sea or the sun or the sky or anything like that. The very first form of religion was actually ancestor worship. you would call out and worship those who came before you, grandparents and great grandparents and so on, siblings that you lost, whoever was gone before you. And to me, the question I would ask is, why would our ancient ancestors think to do that unless maybe someone saw a ghost? And it's remarkable how many even accounts I hear about today that are not frightening. Most of the stories I hear about are usually sort of like closure stories. Someone lost someone dear to them and they got that goodbye maybe they didn't actually get to have in life. So I do think it's more relatively new, the notion that a ghost haunts us. Now, that's ancestor worship and the closure stories, but there's also the cautionary tales, like the murder victim still sort of crying out for justice, the notion of unfinished business, that we get haunted because the spirit is not finished with something, and that they're stuck in some way, which is sort of a more modern religious view of it. The idea that you have to have closure or else. Um, but yeah, but I do think ghosts really started to become a tool for fright, especially Victorian era, 1800s. They were pretty frightening. Really coming into the idea that a ghost is horror. But I think in more traditional times, it was not necessarily something to be afraid of, just something to sort of learn from.
Wasn't it a lot of different religions that started to make the paranormal very, very evil and dark, sinister almost?
Well, right, for sure. I mean, it's yeah, I mean, times change, and then of course different religious influences and things like that, get their hands on different subjects, and then people, want to dictate how we're supposed to feel about just about anything, especially when it comes to something that doesn't fall neatly into, you know, uh, a neat box. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think of the Ouija board, for instance. Uh,
Yes, the
I
Ouija
mean,
board.
you go back into the 1800s and 1900s, the Ouija board was a very popular home game where even religious people were using it to communicate with spirit. And then all of a sudden in the 60s, 50s, 60s, that's when it kind of became kind of taboo to be playing with it.
Well, right, and so yeah, the Ouija board was a parlor game. The Kennard Novelty Company, 1891, started manufacturing the brand name Ouija, and then and then over time, every time there was turmoil in the world, the Ouija board became very popular. World War One, World War Two. But it was when William Peter Blatty wrote The Exorcist in the early 70s, which then got turned into a movie. Um, and then from there it just became a lot more, well, this is not how we communicate with spirits. Ed and Lorraine Warren used to speak out quite a bit against the Ouija board. They were certainly no friend of it. Um, but my oh my, that thing has become sort of polarizing over time. The funny thing is, especially now, as paranormal investigation has become so popular in all the ghost hunting shows, you see people doing EVP and holding EMF meters and dowsing rods and so on. uh, the idea that the Ouija board is dangerous, but dowsing rods are not, is just not really a consistent worldview. You know what I mean? Like, either it's all dangerous or you get better results with one or the other. But man, oh man, does that Ouija board start fights.
Let's go over to Jessica. Jeff, tell us about the meaning of jingle bells.
Okay, we don't have the time to break the whole song down verse by verse, but I'm here today to promise you that the song, number one, it's not a Christmas song. Christmas is not mentioned a single time in the song Jingle Bells, but it is a song about a booty call, a highly sexualized song about taking Miss Fanny Bright out on a one-horse open sleigh with spirits that you drink, and going to a place where a chaperone can't be, and maybe having a grand old time away from prying eyes. It is a song about having sex with a girl in a sled.
I never knew that.
I've done this in front of live audiences where we sort of break down the whole song, and it takes too long to do right now, but it I can pick it apart for you. And yeah, the meaning, it's all really laid out there for you. The idea that me and Miss Fanny Bright, there we are. A gent's riding by. He laughs and, keeps on riding because we just got caught. Funny story.
Hold on, I got to read the lyrics to this now. I think everybody listening to this right now is literally like, okay, the chorus, jingle bells, jingle bells.
No, the chorus is fine. The chorus is not the problem. It's the verses that are going to get you.
Okay. Well, there's a couple verses. So, verse 2, a day or two ago, I thought I'd take a ride, and soon Miss Fanny Bright was seated by my side.
Okay, hold it right there. Miss Fanny Bright, she's single. She's seated by my side. There's no room for anyone else in there but the two of us. Go on.
The horse was lean and lank.
Yep.
Misfortune seemed his lot.
Yep.
He got into a drifted bank, and we then got upsot.
Yes, that's the line right there. And it's actually the original line is, and we twice got upsot. Upsot is an old slang term for being drunk or intoxicated, but it also means to be flipped over or inverted. And I'm here today to tell you that it is not the sleigh that's been flipped over. It's me and Miss Fanny Bright that have been flipped over. And that is proven in the next verse. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, it says, a day or two ago, the
Same
story
day.
I must tell.
Yep.
Okay. I went out on the snow, and on my back I fell.
Right.
A gent was riding by in a one-horse open sleigh. He laughed as there I sprawling lie, but quickly drove away.
Okay, hold tight. Now let me ask you a question. You're in a one-horse open sleigh, Dave, and you ride in the woods, and you find a sleigh that's been flipped over. The horse is struggling over there, and here's two people lying on their back. Do you laugh and keep riding, or do you jump out and ask if we need a doctor or help, or to help us get the sleigh back upright? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you're a decent human being. Now let me ask you another question. You're riding through the woods and you see a sleigh up ahead that's perfectly upright. Everything's fine, but you don't see anybody in it. And then as you pull up next to it, you look over and you go, whoa! You see two people quite upsot, inverted or otherwise. You might just laugh and quickly keep riding. Right?
Yes.
That's what happened. That's what happened. Basically, me and Miss Fanny Bright got caught.
Well, then verse 4, I didn't even know there was a verse 4 to Jingle Bells.
Yep.
Now the ground is white. Go it while you're young. Take the girls tonight and sing this sleighing song. Just get a bobtailed bay, 240 as his speed.
Right.
Hits him to an open sleigh and crack. You'll take the lead.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Oh my gosh.
Song about a booty call. The last verse is just advice to other dudes. Hey, when you go out there alone in the woods, there's only room for the two of you. No chaperone. Get a horse, get some spirits, and have a grand old time. Basically, this song is Paradise by the Dashboard Light by Meatloaf. Same tune.
Yes. Or Baby It's Cold Outside.
That's a song about something much more sinister. What's in this drink? Oh, God. We could go on and on.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I never knew.
Yeah.
I never knew. So I appreciate you educating me tonight. And now I'm going to be wondering about Jingle Bells, because every children's play, every Christmas concert, there's the old Jingle Bells going on.
Now you're going to be running up there going, no, you can't sing this. It's too dirty.
Yeah. I mean, really, in today's society, should we be singing about 6 white boomers anyways?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That
Absolutely.
ain't kangaroos, people. That's old white dudes.
Absolutely.
All right. Jeff Belanger is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Ranger Radio, and his book, which is awesome. The Fright Before Christmas is what we are talking about. Let's get to another audience question here. Let's go to Nikki. A little bit off topic. You ever come across stories about the rougarou?
Yeah,
werewolf?
the rougarou. Yeah, sure. The werewolves, the French word for the werewolf, down in the New Orleans, the Creole, the old Creole. There's some stories down there that I was looking into, and it's just their version of the werewolf, the person that turns into a wolf. I don't know much more beyond that, but down in New Orleans, it is a it is a story that goes around.
Out in the depths of Quebec, too.
So we have, sure, the French. Yeah, of course, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wherever the French culture. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole episode of a dogman creatures that are wandering around up there.
Which would make sense, right? Because there's the gosh, was it the Michigan Dogman or the Minnesota Dogman? Oh,
Yeah,
in the Wisconsin Werewolf.
yeah.
That's not radically far, right, from Quebec, right? It's
No,
not unreasonably far.
no, for sure. All right. As we look at your Christmas book here, I'm sure the popularity of it has really caught a lot of people, especially in the paranormal world, off guard, waiting for something like this. Because I know a lot of people are always interested in things that you wrote about.
Yeah, well, it's been fun to see the response so far. This is a story I've been telling for years in front of live audiences, and so to finally get it down in book form, and the book came out really beautiful. The publisher did an incredible job. It's hardcover, it's full color, it's got a built-in bookmark. The whole thing. It's illustrated, lots of great old artwork, and postcards and things like that. And it's just been really well received so far, which has been thrilling for something so new. And you never know, maybe this will be a new holiday tradition. We'll take back the night, the long dark night.
Why not? Let's go to Neil here over in the UK. Jeff, have you ever been face to face with a ghost?
I have. And the first time it happened to me, I was actually in Paris, France, and I was alone, and it was 2003. And I had an afternoon to myself, and I had some work colleagues at the time that said, "Hey, we're going to go over and go to the Louvre." And I said, "Well, I'll catch up with you later. I'm going underground." And I went to the catacombs of Paris, and I went down below the city, and I had walked through over a mile of just human skeletons all around me in these tunnels beneath the city. And I was in this long straightaway, this tunnel that if I stuck my fingertips out in both directions, I'd practically be touching skulls. And right ahead of me, I saw this shadow the size of a man step out from one side and go to the other and back again. And I just froze. And I thought, okay, first thought was, I thought I was alone. No one came from behind me. That would have been impossible. But I thought maybe there's a little side tunnel up ahead and someone else is down here with me that I had missed. But nope, I kept walking and there is no side tunnel. It was just a straightaway all the way to the end. And that was the first time I saw something that I would say in my own heart of hearts, like, if that's not a ghost, I don't have another word for what it is that I saw. And that was the first time, and I'll never forget it.
My goodness. My goodness. How haunted is your own home, considering you write about these topics?
Not very. I really can compartmentalize my work because I have to. I mean, that my life forces me to do that. That being said, there was this one time when I was doing a story on this haunted Victorian mansion in central Massachusetts. And the owner, people had died there. It was all kinds of, really intriguing, haunting stories. I literally found the death certificate of a man that burned up in bed back when it was a boarding house, in one of the rooms. And so the owner's taking me around and he's telling me all these various stories of things he and his wife have experienced throughout the house. And in his bedroom, he said, the strangest thing is he and his wife will be in bed and they'll feel something like shaking the foot of the bed. And I thought, oh, okay. That was literally the most mild story he told me all night. And I drove home that night and I got home pretty late. I went to bed and I was sound asleep. And I woke up in the middle of the night to something shaking the foot of my bed. And I woke up right away and I instantly thought, okay, psychosomatic, this is in my own head. I took a deep breath and I said, all right. Okay. Took a deep breath and I closed my eye and the shaking started again and I'm wide awake. I'm like, okay, no, that was not psychosomatic. I'm wide awake. My daughter was like 3 years old at the time and she's down the hall and I'm thinking, oh, she didn't ask for this. You know what I mean? This is dad's crazy job. This isn't. And I just sat up for the longest time waiting for the next shoe to drop. And fortunately that was it. It didn't happen again. But otherwise, my house has been mostly not haunted.
You're lucky. You're lucky.
Well, you know what? We don't want to take our work home all the time, right?
Oh, mine just stays here. Mine just stays here. You know, my area, literally where I live, probably 80 to 90% of the houses here are haunted.
No kidding. Why do you
And
think that is?
I think it has everything to do with the Gold Rush Trail.
Okay.
Because when people were getting murdered and robbed, what they were doing was they were expanding the path. So instead of walking on the main trail, they were going out half a mile to a mile and making their own path and going through that way. In order to save their gold or save their own lives or both.
Got it.
Right. And so, like, I know people around here. Your house haunted? Oh, I haven't seen anything yet. Like, I know a guy who just moved into town, good friend of mine. And I said, so how haunted is your house? He's like, dude, he's like, I'm already noticing things. I'm like, awesome. Welcome to the 108.
Yeah,
Nice.
right.
You know, I mean, there's always something moving around here.
Yeah.
And it's weird because we also have a high concentration of UFO sightings here as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a real different area. You know, we got about 3.5 minutes to go with you tonight, Jeff. And I told you this show was going to absolutely fly on by, which it has. Do you ever see yourself writing a part 2 to this Christmas book?
Man,
Christmas.
I don't think so. I think I pretty well covered it. You know, it's such a great story. Now, there's other cultures. I'm sure there's other monsters. I don't know if it'd be worthy of a part 2, but it's a story I've been meaning to get to forever, and I was grateful to finally be able to get it out. As I was telling these stories in front of live audiences for years, people would come up to me after and say, "Oh, have you ever heard of the Caraconchulus of Bulgaria, or the Tomton or Père Foutard from France?" And I would just take notes, and I'd go home and I'd start working on it and start researching it. And so it was so very much crowdsourced that it was fun to just kind of like be a part of it and watch this thing sort of grow as I learned about different cultures. One of the things I noticed, and I mean, I'm freely admit it, the book is very European centric. Like a lot of these traditions and monsters came from that region, from Northern Europe and so on, and would spread from there, either by the internet or by people relocating somewhere else. In Southern Hemisphere, there's various stories, of course. There's stories of ghosts and monsters and trolls and everything else, but they don't quite have the seasonality to it, especially when it comes to Christmas, which makes a lot of sense because, of course, Christmas in the Southern Hemisphere is the summer. It's not the winter, like it is here. So opposite seasons and so on.
Very true. Very true, Jeff. 2 minutes to go here. I wish from all of us here at Spaced Out Radio a very Merry Christmas to you and your family during this time, and I hope everything goes well and that Santa Claus does come to your house. What do you leave out for Santa Claus at night?
Well, beer, of course, beer and cookies, which is Santa's 2 favorite things. I know that for a fact. I mean, absolute indisputable fact. Beer and cookies for Santa, sometimes some carrots for the reindeer or lettuce. And then a letter too. One of the things that I've been I instilled in my daughter, like, how about a thank you letter? How about something to say, he's appreciated, because sometimes Santa needs to hear that. You know what I mean? Santa needs to hear that the effort is appreciated. And it's such a great holiday. I think about the magic that I grew up with and then lost, as I think we all do as we get older and jaded and whatever. But then I had a kid, and so much of that magic came back. But now she's getting older. She's 16 now, driving a car and all that other stuff. But I just look forward to the next cycle of it and see what it brings and see the joy we can find in it. And as hectic as it is, as crazy as it is, I still think there's magic to be found in it. You just might have to dig a little harder than you used to.
Very true. Tell everybody where they can find your books.
Yeah, well, you can find me wherever books are sold. All my books are pretty much available everywhere, the Amazons and Barnes and Nobles and independent booksellers as well. And you can also find me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at Exploring Legends. And I love communicating with people that have got stories to share. So always happy to hear from folks who've got a strange tale to tell. I'm as much a fan as I am a chronicler of these things. So good to be with you again, Dave. I'll see you in 7.5 years.
Yeah, we'll break another mirror and then we'll be able to go back. Jeff Belanger, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up next, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Then little Timmy Senor brings us the UFO report, filling in for Courtney Marcassani. We'll be right back. What a pleasure, Jeff. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Good to be with you again. And yeah, we won't be a stranger for sure.
Absolutely, my friend. And you take care, and all the best to you and your family over the holiday season.
You too. I'm sorry about your mom, and I hope you get that. I hope you get the sign you need that warms the heart. I'm sure you will.
I'm sure it'll be there. I'm sure it'll be there. Much love, my friend. You take care.
Take care.
Good night. Jeff Belanger, everybody, or Bellinger for you Americans. Belanger. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back, guys. All right. What a great show so far. Thanks, Debsta. Reminder to all of you, I know Christmas is next week, a week today, but sign up for our good old-fashioned party. The SOR Fan Party, the third annual, will be in Reno, Nevada at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort, May 10th through 12th. Little Timmy Seymour is going to be there. He's going to be hanging out. He's going to be giving a few of these. Yes, he will. Along with other guests. Jim Goodall's coming. Melinda Leslie is coming. Lorian Fenton, Geraldine Orozco, Science Bob, La 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 La, Bright. Our entire SOR team is going to be there. And we're going to bring in some more people too. Just for you. Merle's going to be there. Who doesn't want to Merle it up with Merle? Okay. So go to info@spacedoutradio.com. Tickets are $100 for VIP, $60 if you're not a VIP, but that's okay. We still love you. And you get the free radio show, VIP party, swag bag, ghost tour, and a sky watch. And we might have some special guests there as well. Other ones. Yeah. We want you there. Thank you tonight to Louie with a hat trick of super chats, T-Bone, Dragonfly, and Puck Elf. Thank you guys for everything. Here we go with the third hour.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. You could join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Vandellas. Vandellas is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Once again, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing kicks off hour number 3 with another spooky story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Hi, Steve. I saw your call for stories for Midnight Mailbox, and I thought I'd send you one of my strange encounters. This is totally serious, and it really happened. It was the weirdest hiking trip of my life. I was out in the tall trees, the ones that make you feel like you're in some giant's backyard. Deep, dark woods, straight out of a movie, where the sunlight barely pokes through. I usually don't get scared, but on this hike, I was frightened out of my wits. First of all, I'd strayed from the usual trail. Classic mistake, I know. But curiosity had gotten the better of me. The deeper into the woods I went, the quieter it got. Suddenly, I noticed there were no bird sounds, no leaf rustling, nothing. Just this creepy silence that was all around me. Then, all of a sudden, I stepped into a clearing. Sunlight beaming through the trees, and in the middle, an ancient-looking circle of stones. It wasn't very big, but it was indeed placed there by human hands. As I'm circling these rocks, I spot these funky symbols etched into them. Not gonna lie, it looked like some kind of bizarre alien tic-tac-toe game. And then I hear what sounds like people chatting in the distance. I'm standing there thinking, what is happening? It sounded ancient. I felt this weird energy, but that's what happened. The next strange thing that was part of this hike, I'm on this narrow trail, trees closing in like a tunnel, and I hear footsteps behind me, leaves crunching, but every time I stop, it stops. I turn, nothing. It's just me, my echoing footsteps, and this feeling of being watched. And then, off in the trees, I see a misty figure. I'm squinting, making sure that my mind's not playing tricks. But no, it's a shadowy somebody or something just standing there. I wanted to call out, but it was like my voice was gone. I started to take a step closer, and it was gone. I'm standing there.
If you want to make money online,
And thank you to Steve Stockton for another spooky story here on Spaced Out Radio, as we bring you Steve each and every Monday through Friday night right here on the Mighty SOR to kick off hour number 3. We love it when he's here. And yeah, if you want more, just head on over to youtube.com/Among the Missing. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and there we go. All right, from the missing to the mysterious, the legendary return for one night only, little Timmy Senor in the UFO Report.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
Tim Senor filling in for Courtney Marcassani, who's making her way back home tonight to Alaska for the Christmas holiday season. She'll be with us in a couple of nights' time, but we're glad, Tim, that you are available tonight to help us on out. Thank you for being here, my man.
And thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. What have you been up to? The audience was always wondering, where's Timmy at? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I've been everywhere. Been all over the West Coast, staying busy with family stuff. And then, as you and I know, we have a project that I'm working diligently on, plus a few other little projects here on the side. And so definitely staying busy, nose to the grindstone as always. I'm on this topic still. So people that are wondering what I'm up to, I'm definitely still working on this topic.
Right on. So before we get into this, what's some Christmas tradition at the Senor house?
That's a great question. So traditionally, we drive up to Seattle and spend it all together at my mom and dad's house. So we'll be doing that again this year. Usually they have, instead of a tree indoors, they decorate a massive tree outdoors. So the day that I get there, I usually put the star on top. And I think this might be the year that I hand it down to perhaps one of the children. We'll see if they're willing to monkey their way up to the top and put the star up there. So we'll see.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. And what does Santa get for food and beverages?
It's spiced eggnog, right? I think that's it. And we do also do spiced wine, which is like a cheap burgundy with cinnamon. It's pretty, cut rate. I think there might be a little brown sugar. I'm not sure what the recipe is. My mom's the one that usually puts that one together. And that's a warm spiced wine, which is pretty good. Some people like Chianti for it. It's all up to personal taste. But yeah, we also do, there's a brandy thing that my dad used to do. I'll have to find that. We'll keep that tradition going. So there's quite a few actually. I come from a British household, so there's all kinds, including hiding a sixpence in the pudding. That's another thing. Whoever gets the sixpence gets to make a wish. And you have to be careful eating the pudding because it could be in there, right? So a few times, you almost break a tooth on the coin. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, breaking a tooth at Christmas time. What better way than a heavy dentist bill, to go along?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
we love it. We love it. All right. Well, I appreciate that. Tim, let's get right to the UFO report because since you were last on, there's been a lot happening. And I think right now we are in almost like a calm before the storm after the Schuman Rounds amendment really got shot
Schumer?
down.
Yeah.
And, I mean, what was your thoughts on that? Did you expect that?
I mean, I personally did. I've got a great article here that covers it. I mean, my personal opinion was that I had no expectations going this after last year and how they stripped everything interesting out of that bill. We saw the same thing happen here, and thepulse.com has a great article I'd love to actually catch up on here, because we know that within the past few months, the legislation did look promising, and it was designed to task all government departments with the responsibility of examining data sets about UAP. Now, it was a significant step towards all available data on UAP, but this didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. And so the measure was tucked into the annual defense policy bill that won final approval in a bipartisan vote. And it directs the National Archives to collect government documents about UAP, technologies of unknown origin, and non human intelligence. But basically, the act has been stripped of its substance and only has the ability to collect UAP reports. And without any clear guidelines of how these reports will be made public, it's still in a big gray area. So, under the provision which President Biden is expected to sign into law, any records not already officially disclosed must be made public within 25 years of their creation, unless the president determines they must remain classified for national security reasons. So, a lot of loopholes there still in some of that disclosure. And so, the original legislature called for the government to skip any review and simply ordered the DoD to declassify, quote, records relating to publicly known sightings of UAP and that do not reveal sources, methods, and otherwise compromise the national security of the US. So it would have also allowed those within the national security state to come forward to share what they know publicly about the phenomena, which being punished for breaking their national security oaths, they would have been cleared. So these were key provisions and they were all gutted and watered down with this bill. And that basically prevents any disclosure regarding the crash craft and bodies recovered. So that is exactly the kind of information I am reading and agree with. And so, yeah, that has been very neatly tucked away again for at least another year. And it looks like even the information that they do want to disclose, we've got 25 years of grace period there. And even some of those old records, they could still be kept classified if they felt it was going to release anything that they would call sources and methods.
You know what? I'm going to give you a compliment here. And I talked to a number of people on the weekend in the past week or so. We have been, and I thank you a lot for this. We have been leaders in championing the difference between UFOs and UAP. Many people now within the UFO community who are staunch UAP people are now starting to really see the difference between the two. That this whole thing has been about covering up American spy planes, spy satellites, spy rockets, spy drones. That this is what it's been about. It has not had anything to do with UFOs. The UFO part is still very, very much a malignant topic of discussion that very few people actually know the truth about regarding this topic. And I'll give you an example. Christopher Sharp from the Liberation Times I had a great conversation with him on the weekend, and we were talking about this exact subject. And I was saying it's the responsibility, Chris, of people like you, of me, and many others to start, if we want to start cleaning up this ufology mess, we have to start calling it the way it is. And he actually has written an article about that a few weeks ago, that the government is not interested in UFOs. They are interested in protecting their UAP assets that they have created. And I think, you know what? We're not going to get a lot of credit around the UFO world for championing that cause, Tim. But damn it, did we work hard on that in trying to educate people?
Absolutely. And it defines it in a really specific way. And for people that are coming from a disclosure standpoint, I think it's a fair definition. At least it gives you a standpoint to understand that was a term that was created to kind of blanket over what they were seeing in the skies that they didn't understand. But they were calling it anomalous the same way they would call something fast moving anomalous. Sorry if you're getting feedback there.
No feedback whatsoever. But you're
Cool.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. They wanted to blanket because they can they don't know what UFOs are, but they sure as hell can hide their technology coming out of places like Area 51 as UFOs under the UAP blanket.
And they also, in a recent article, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAP, excuse me, is a relatively newly adopted and broadly defined term that encompasses UFOs in the sky in addition to unidentified objects underwater, in space, or that appear to travel between these domains. So that is a huge blanket term. And so the fact is that if we keep UFO, that keeps it very specific to things that are otherworldly and may contain aliens. And that's a totally different topic to this very broadly defined term that they came up with as UAP. So I completely feel that it needs that definition and that separation still.
Absolutely.
It
And
helps.
more people are starting to see the difference. That's the key to it. We were fooled. Okay. Many of us were fooled because you want to be politically correct. Society today wants to be politically correct in all facets of every ball game that's being played. But when you look into it, and the people who are way deeper than you and I are in this field are looking into it and saying, hey, wait a second here. There's a difference. You know, I'm glad we took that stance, man. Very, very glad that we took that UAP stance.
Absolutely. I mean, and you can also consider the fact that we know that that was developed as a term so that at some point they could develop a strong language that was not as easily searchable in history. Now, some people say UAP goes back to the 50s as a term. Well, I think UFO has been more specifically used for aliens and craft that aliens have, rather than UAP, because that was more of a military term in my understanding. I mean, if you want to go by the old term for UFOs, it would be UFO knots for the beings inside, right? It was UFOs and UFO knots. So, I mean, it's all in the terminology, and we know that they love to use language to hide things so that they can look you right in the eye and say they have no knowledge of UFOs, or they have no knowledge of UAPs, or they, but they've been briefed on something else called UFO knots. Who knows? But it's all hidden in the language, and you're absolutely right. That definition does need to be made, and
Getting back to it, a lot of people are saying that 2024, right from the beginning, we're going to see new allegations from people like David Grush. We're going to see more people come out in the year. Lou Elizondo's book is supposed to be out in 2024. I mean, what more can they bring to the table outside of naming names?
Yeah, and you and I spoke about this, I think last show, I definitely feel the next big move would be a whistleblower with firsthand knowledge, of bodies or craft. We know that it's out there. We know that there are people that have had hands on it, and those are the people that we need to have come forward at this point. And, you know, we understand they may not be able to name names or locations, and that's really okay for the public. As far as I'm concerned, I think just an admission of their existence is enough publicly, because that'll make the headlines. But what needs to be talked about behind closed doors is what has happened to that technology since it was recovered. Where is it now? What was done with the beings, if there were any? How were they treated? That's a big thing. Like, hopefully it was in a fair and just way. But there's so many big question marks there. And so I think that would be what needs to come next. We've had a lot of big promises. At this point, we need firsthand knowledge witnesses, or, maybe what Mexico delivered wasn't so far off the track coming forward with mummies. Wouldn't that be great if the US was willing to dig up a body part, anything that was actually alien? And bring that forward to our Congress and do a presentation the way Jaime Maussan bravely did. Whether you believe in his presentation or not, it was a very brave and bold thing to do. So we need that same thing with hard evidence.
Very true. What is that hard evidence, though?
I would say that DNA, that verifiable DNA, that it is not human. The verifiable tech that we can prove has not been designed by humans. Just something, I think, more than somebody's story, or sworn statement, which is still great. But at this point, I think we need to step it up. And the world is watching. I mean, just because it's not in the headlines now doesn't mean that the world isn't watching. They really are. And Congress met, I believe, today and talked about this topic. And it wasn't like a closed forum. It was an open forum, is my understanding. So there will be some reporting on it, I hope. But there will be some more coming for sure. I just don't know exactly what. My hope is, like I said, firsthand witness.
And it's going to be interesting to see if there are any more firsthand witnesses coming out. We can only hope. I hope so. But at what point do we see David Grush finally say enough is enough? And, talking to one of our insiders today that you're very familiar with, he was saying that right now what he's hearing is it's a battle between numbers. It's a battle between who's going to get what paycheck, how much, and how much disclosure for dollars they're going to get.
And that term comes up again, disclosure for dollars. That is so key as well. Just as important as defining UAP from UFO. I think that disclosure for dollars is a very valid term. And so is ufologics. The fact that this topic is even brought up on the Capitol Hill is kind of a mind bender to me. And that we know that it's become politicized. Whether you want to say it's bipartisan or not, people are stepping forward very loudly and politically on this topic, calling for transparency or not, or, demanding a position and squashing it. It's just all politicized, whether you want to admit it or not. And so people are definitely standing up on the soapbox, waving a UFO flag one way or another, and using it for votes. That's what I see.
I agree with you, Tim. When we return for the final half hour of this show and the final half hour of the UFO report, we're going to get into a retired Navy admiral backing shocking UFO claims and weapons theory, and a mystery orb seen shooting across the sky over the UK. It's going to be interesting. See how it goes. Little Timmy Seymour filling in for Courtney Marcassani tonight on Spaced Out Radio and the UFO Report. My name is Dave Scott. We will return right after this. Sit tight. Bingo.
Dave.
Bingo lingo.
So how have you gotten ready? I know you went shopping.
I went shopping Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a
That's
5-hour push on Sunday. And then
Boy.
oh, dude, the Walmart toy section here is terrible.
Oh,
I couldn't believe how small of a section they had for Transformers.
I miss Toys R Us. I mean, there's no more toy stores. They just like disappeared.
Walmart and Amazon killed toy stores.
It's such a bummer.
Yep.
That was the best. Just going to toy stores. I mean, that's the only reason I even had kids, so I could go to toy stores as an adult.
I
Can't even
agree.
do it.
I agree.
Lame.
You know? And so
and also video games killed action figures. So depressing. Going through the action figure section is so weak now. I used to just like hang there. It's like between He-Man and G.I. Joe and whatever.
You know what I did see in the toys section though? A revitalization of all the old board games.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Like Monopoly and Clue and Risk and Aggravation.
Risk was fun.
I love Risk.
Yeah. Did you play Axis and Allies by chance?
No.
That was fun too.
My one buddy and I, when we played Risk, it would go on for like 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah. Great game. And I actually got into it with my whole family. We were all into that game. My mom was super good at it. We should dig it out. Maybe I'll bring Risk this year. Such an addictive game. Yeah.
Love starting with Australia or South America.
It's been so long. It's been so long.
Oh, yeah.
I can just remember what all the pieces look like.
Yeah. Love starting with Australia or South America and building it from there.
Right in the middle. Spanning out. Yeah. Of course you did. We can never play together now because I know your strategy.
I liked starting in Africa too. Starting on the south was always best.
And then just merge with the Asian continent.
Asia's tough. Europe was tough.
To maintain. Yeah, to maintain.
And North America was probably the easiest.
Yeah, no borders. Just one.
Well, I mean, you had 3. You have Mexico.
Yeah, but in the game, it was like easy to cover.
Yeah. I mean, when you have to put like 300 troops on Iceland, size of a dime.
Right, just to maintain it.
Yeah. You know.
Giggity.
Totally. Candy Wolf's about half an hour behind the show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So how's everything else going over there?
Good.
The office looks nice. It looks clean. Did you clean?
I did a little bit.
You cleaned. That's good. I needed it.
Oh, look who's in the chat room. Random Gee.
This guy.
Random Gee.
Yeah, when will we get aliens? I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm so freaking ready.
I need to find my passport.
You do need it. I mean, hello. Yeah.
I
You definitely need your passport, bro.
I need to get that done. That'll be done. There's two things I got to get done in January. I got to find my passport or get a new one. And then I have to go to school for a weekend to get my firearms license
Oh, okay.
and my core safety.
That's good.
Yeah. Then I could be a crazy redneck gun owner.
Right. I think all you need in Oregon to get a gun is you have to be able to reach the counter, pretty much.
Not here. It takes anywhere from 3 to 9 months. And the backlog is terrible. Hold on. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon, you can join the Space Travelers Club. Here's little Timmy Senor and the UFO report, filling in for a traveling Courtney Marcassani. And Tim, thank you so much for being here, my man.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We got a retired Navy admiral talking aliens. What's going on here?
We do indeed. So, retired Navy Admiral Gallaudet is talking to News Nation, and he believes that David Grush is being honest in his experience in the military and in the government. It has him convinced that something is going on. And so, in a quote, he says, "We're being visited by non-human intelligence and technology we really don't understand, and with intentions that we don't understand either." And so Tim Gallaudet told News Nation this in an interview recently, continues on to say here that one of, quote, "my jobs in the Navy was chief meteorologist of the Navy at the time when the Orion was encountering the UAP off the U.S. East Coast." And so Gallaudet, who served as the head of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, under President Trump, also believes a cover-up is underway. So he says in a quote, "I learn now that these were occurring in training airspace and causing near mid-air collisions. So the safety issue is important, but the Navy didn't do anything about it. They actually pulled back that email from my computer on a secret network. This technology we're still trying to learn about could give us an advantage in any military conflict. And that's a good reason not to disclose the nature of the technology. So I think for the foreseeable future, we don't want to release and disclose all the technology that we've recovered. However, I think it's about time that we do disclose that we are in contact with non-human intelligence. And that's what needs to be put in there into the public." And so, although Tim Gallaudet was never part of any UFO programs while working in the government, he has apparently seen enough, including alleged UAP video from a fighter jet pilot, to think the truth is out there. And Dave, I'm interested to get your take, because he's got an interesting point here, that he's saying that it's not so important to disclose all of the technology. And in fact, he says for the foreseeable future, he feels like it shouldn't be released and there should be no disclosure of the technology. However, we need to admit that there's been contact with non-human intelligence, and that needs to be made public. Do you agree with that statement, or do you think it needs to be full disclosure, pull off the Band-Aid?
Pull off the Band-Aid, man. pull off the Band-Aid. Look, there is no real disclosure. We know that the government game is teasing us with aliens and the possibility that we have craft and maybe even the bodies. Okay. David Grush, if we trust his word, that is 100%. Question is, why are they holding it back? And this is where, Tim, I'm going to sound like a repeat section on an old, cassette here. Okay. This is where we need to segregate UFOs from UAPs. This is the exact point of where people get confused, that the two are the same. All right. They're not going to, them being the government, are not going to allow anything about UFOs and UAP and bodies, pardon me, to come out until they know what's going on. The only true disclosure right now that we have and hope for any of us is that the aliens themselves show up and say, we're here.
And doesn't it seem too, Dave, that they're more interested in these secret legacy programs and how the money's been spent? It seems like that's more what Arrow's investigating rather than any of the actual reports or claims being brought forward by any of the witnesses.
That's because they got nothing. They got nothing right now.
And can I just ask you a question that I've been wanting to ask for a while?
Sure.
We know that there's somebody temporary running Arrow right now. In a recent statement, we know that the national security itself, I guess, what is it? The national security officers. It's like association, maybe NSA. I'm not sure. But they were saying that it's the secretive aspect of the government itself that is holding back disclosure and the UFO topic. The UFO topic, not the UAP topic, and that's an important distinction. So why do we have somebody currently running temporarily the Arrow office who was deeply involved in the CIA and we know works in the National Security Office as well? So I'm just kind of wondering, do you see this being a massive problem? Are we really expecting anything out of Arrow? And I do have some more information on this, but I'm just kind of wondering where you at with that.
I don't think we're going to see any major information out of Arrow. Just like Arrow to me is the fancy new NASA that isn't doing their job.
Right. A quote from Askapol is actually coming from Senator Rounds recently saying, and this was Senator Rounds' quote, saying that Arrow is working, but Arrow is just for DOD. And while they're collecting items, they're not really disseminating items. So we would like to have some transparency, but we want to make darn sure that we protect our national security interests as well. And so we keep coming on this same topic that they want the disclosure and they're fighting for disclosure, but
yeah, it's the same words, same sentence, different politician's mouth.
But don't you think that we could get all of the disclosure that we want without any of the ways and means or any dissemination of secret information? Don't you think that that's possible? They could do it if they wanted to. It just feels like
good. Absolutely. But
it's
here's
an
the
excuse.
thing. We don't know what they know. Okay.
But we know who they're being taught. Okay, but we do know what they know because we know the people that have informed them, right?
True. Okay, but let's be hypothetical here for a second.
Okay.
And we've said this before on this show. What happens if the public finds out there is a list of American citizens who they know have been taken? And maybe some of those people have vanished and are off the planet. Lawsuit?
Right. And that's the
Government
Pandora's box, right? The Pandora's box aspect that you bring up. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. the lawsuits and the worry about everything else. I mean, how do you justify, say, going to a place like Ohio, and all of a sudden you have people losing their jobs left, right, and center because a major black project was leaked to the media? And now the media wakes up and actually covers the story.
Right.
Right. And this is why having the government involved has complicated this entire beautifully weird phenomena. Right. That's why they've kept it segregated with the UAP garbage. That's why they will not talk aliens. Okay. Because, unlike today's, take today's vehicles, man. Okay. They all have pilots in them. They're called drivers. What happens if all of a sudden we're having a discussion about cars, but we're not talking about the drivers that, put that car through a cement barrier that went into a ditch? We're not talking about somebody sideswiping somebody else, because we don't believe in that. All right? How dare they talk pilots of cars? Well, we're just talking cars.
Right. Right. It's a good analogy. And I'll tell you also, recently, as recent as today, in fact, UFOs have crept back into the headlines. New York Times, in fact. But unfortunately, it's in an opinion piece. And it's an opinion piece that not only sews up the credibility of all of the naysayers, but it also gives reasons why we shouldn't be wasting our time on this topic. So it's kind of the bow on the package, if you will. They've done such a good job this season of tying this package up for another year. This article, I couldn't even finish. That's why I'm not quoting it here, other than letting you know it happened. Was kind of the bow of the package that you are just going to put in the closet because you don't want this package. You don't want this present this year. You'll open it or maybe re-gift it next year.
Isn't that what we always do?
It's so frustrating. It is so frustrating. But the New York Times really had a very interestingly timed article that came out today, just really in support of naysayers on this topic, and kind of, I won't go into any more detail, but it was one of those things. I search, some big media looking for this topic, and this was one of those articles that you just don't really need to read if you believe in this topic. So, but yeah. How do you feel about that? Knowing that that's kind of the way the media is going to handle this at this point. They've kind of seen how Congress has taken it this year, so they're following suit.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to report on it different. Fox is going to report on it different than CNN, than News Nation. Okay, News Nation has banked their entire pretty much process, their news editorials on UFOs as a big story. And you know what? They're killing it in the ratings for it.
Yeah.
They are. And they are only going to go as far as the people who they have. So with News Nation, they have obviously Ross Coulthart reporting full time on the UFO story. Okay, so they have him going after it, as well as other reporters looking into that. That's money. That is money in their pockets. Okay. And Fox News realized that. Tucker Carlson realizes that. Joe Rogan realizes that every time we talk UFOs, guess what happens? Our ratings spike. Don't think many of the media outlets haven't caught on to that. They may not like it, but they've caught on to it.
Yeah. But chasing ratings doesn't really help the topic, right? If there's no real movement, and they're not. And here's the thing: who are they interviewing? At the worst end, they'll get a debunker, and we don't need to name names. But even on the positive side, some of the people that are pro this topic, when presented to the wider audience, can be seen a little bit kooky. And I only say that knowing the eccentricities of some of the people that are actually delivering the information. It's hard to be taken seriously. A lot of the public wants you to be wearing a tie, to be delivering news like this. And so for somebody to come in like me with a shaved head and some tattoos and be like, of course there's alien life, and the fact that you don't know it is your own problem. You need to get caught up to date. That's a lot for the general public to kind of swallow, right? So we have to consider how this is going to be developed and fed to the general public, because there's a lot of information being whirled around right now. And even you were saying that it seems like there's like this espionage going on with the truth of the topic. Why is it so hard to handle right now? Even the people behind the scenes, it seems like the truth is so hard to kind of handle. It's a hot potato. Like
Truth
nobody
is scary,
wants it.
Truth is scary. UAPs are not scary. Okay. What is scary is UFOs landing in your neighbor's backyard, lighting up everything, and potentially taking your neighbor or yourself or somebody in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. And the
Okay.
fact is, it's happening, right? Often. Who knows? We're definitely getting lots of reports of things in the skies. Even this one that I have today, it could be a real UFO report, but you know that it'll get squashed or called something else by the general media or the naysayers, or who knows how deep it'll go. But
All right, let's get to our final story of the night here,
Yeah.
because we got about 6 minutes left here.
cool.
Orbs.
So
Okay, what's happening?
mystery as a giant orb has been seen shooting across the UK skies. And so this just occurred. Several residents in Glasgow reported incredible sighting of what appeared to be a type of UFO flying across the sky. Spotted soaring through the skies above the UK, it had astonished onlookers. A 21-second clip has been uploaded to TikTok. User JCO Backup, and shows up as a bright orb flying across the sky. Now, despite first thinking it was a meteor, to people's surprise, the bright ball is seen changing color, and not once, but multiple times. And so several residents in Glasgow reported incredible sighting, and it in the quote from the user that uploaded the video, it says that it changes colors and made no sound as it flew by. Many people think it's just a meteorite, but as more videos were released of it, it's glowing in different colors. And many have started to believe that it might actually be a UFO. And so many videos have flown in of this sighting. And I believe as many as 12 at this point. So a lot of people have footage of it. And each one of the videos that I've been able to see myself do appear to look in different colors and a different shape. It's kind of hard to make out a shape. But according to the video, this UFO exhibited peculiar characteristics, including changing colors as it traversed the sky without making any sound. And so it's just another report coming in. Now, we know debunkers are going to jump on it. We'd love to get some information perhaps from the Weather Bureau out there and see if they're going to be updating and following up on it. But either way, I know I will be. It's definitely an interesting case. Your thoughts?
Huge interesting case. But here's the thing. What are orbs? We seem to be fighting about these orbs again.
Yeah.
And what they are. I mean, I've seen orbs, man. I've seen one, with friends on my patio, watching it go from east to west, right along the Fraser River. Right after it hit where the bridge is, hung a 90-degree turn south, and then a complete 180 back on track, and disappeared behind the mountains.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I filmed one right here over my house. It's on my YouTube channel during a rainstorm, just over the treetops. I couldn't believe it. I mean, they are definitely out there. They're so bizarre, and them changing colors definitely seems like a characteristic. So,
what do you think orbs are?
What do I think they are? Well, there's a natural potential explanation of being plasma, according to the Scientific Coalition for UAP. But the ones that are large and seem to have an intelligence to them, perhaps are something else. Now, the one that I filmed could have been natural because it kind of acted like a bubble and just kind of seemed to dance away, but it was against the wind. So I really don't know what to make of these things. I really don't, but they're very interesting. And this is what I would consider a UAP in my personal thoughts, just because of how they kind of come in and out of existence. I don't know. Maybe it's UFO.
Do you think orbs are conscious?
I mean, if they are, that makes them UFO, I don't know. I haven't seen anything to show consciousness, but I know a lot of people out there have interacted and believe there is. I'm open to it.
Me too, my man. We got about just under 2 minutes to go here.
Super.
On Spaced Out Radio's UFO Report. Tim Senor filling in for Courtney Marcassani tonight. Tim, we see a lot of these orbs around the United States. People see them while they're hiking or up in the mountains or just on the edge skirts of town. Do you think these things are smart enough to try and play tricks on citizens of the U.S. or Canada?
I interviewed a character named Oregon Bob, and he goes by that as his anonymous name. And he brought a camera team up to some mountains here in Oregon. And in this story, that film crew encountered multiple orbs in the forest. One of them in particular came so close to them that they got an electrical EMP shock. And it knocked one of the camera people to their feet and disrupted their camera and their footage. And I mean, there could be intention there, but according to their account, it seemed more like they just got a little too close. It didn't seem like the orbs moved to them. It seemed like they moved to the orbs and then had a negative interaction. So right. I still don't know if there's intention there, but definitely they're everywhere. And some of the stories are really interesting and kind of hair-raising, literally.
You got that right.
Yeah.
You got that right, my man. Thank you so much for coming on the UFO Report, filling in for Courtney tonight. We very much appreciate it, Tim Senor.
No problem. It's been fun. Good catching up.
And we know it'll happen again because you're that guy. You're little Timmy Senor. And we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the SOR Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. If you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. Good show. Good show. Where the hell did that go? That is... She's warm in the office. She's warm, I tell you. Right. Excuse me. Tomorrow night on the show, David Marler joins us. Talk all about black triangles and the hidden APRO files. It's going to be great. And thank you tonight to Louis ×3, Dragonfly, T-Bone, and T-Bone ×2. And can't even read my own writing right now. Hold on. I tell you. Puck Elf. Why can I remember that? Oh, T-Bone again. Dude. Love you, man. Thank you. All right. I'm going to go edit. And we will talk to you all tomorrow night, guys. David Marler, Black Triangles and APRO. Take care.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.